please. They broke my crutches." She whispered. 70 Hell's Angels answered her cry. Cold wind swept through Bellwood on Monday morning. It pushed dead leaves along the curb and made the bare trees shake. The old brick mill across the river stood dark against a pale sky. June Bell stopped at the foot of the steps to Bellwood Community Hall. She was 26, though that morning she felt much older. The building rose above her, solid and worn. Its red bricks had faded over 100 years. White paint peeled from the tall front doors. A carved stone above them showed the year the hall had opened. June tucked one crutch under each arm. They were old aluminum crutches that had once belonged to her grandmother Nora. The rubber tips were worn smooth, and the hand grips had faded from gray to a dull brown. One crutch gave a small rattle when June moved it. She planted both tips on the first step. Lift, brace, breathe. Her injured leg hung stiff beside her good one. Pain pulled through her knee, but she kept going. 6 steps. It took her nearly 2 minutes. Before the accident, she had crossed them without thought. Then a driver had looked down at his phone instead of the road. In one hard second, June's life had filled with hospital lights, metal braces, and months of learning how to stand again. Before you continue listening, please let me know where in the world are you watching from today. Now back to the story. She reached the top and rested against the door. "You made it," she whispered. The key stuck in the old lock. June turned it with both hands until the bolt gave way. Inside, the hall smelled of floor wax, cold dust, and old wood. Weak morning light shone through the high windows. Rows of folding chairs stood against one wall. A paper snowflake, left from a children's winter party, hung over the stage. June switched on the lights. Only half of them came on. "Good morning to you too," she told the building. Her voice came back in a soft echo. She moved past the kitchen where volunteers cooked soup for families during hard weeks. She passed the small room where retired workers played cards every Thursday. Near the stage stood a glass case filled with medals, faded letters, and photographs of local veterans. Bellwood Community Hall was more than brick and wood. Children learned to read there. Retired people came for warm meals and company. Veterans met there when old memories became too heavy to carry alone. Working parents traded school clothes, canned food, and simple advice. The hall held people together. June reached the archive room at the back. Shelves covered every wall. They held boxes of tapes and records from former mill workers. Some boxes were neat, others bent under their own weight. Names had been written across them in pencil. Samuel Reed. Machine Room, 1968, Betty Cole. Night Shift, Nora Bell. Founding Trustee. June lowered herself into her desk chair. Her leg throbbed. She waited until the pain eased, then placed her headphones over her ears. On the desk sat a small tape player linked to her computer. June cleaned an old recording reel with a soft cloth. Then she set it on the machine and pressed a button. A warm voice came through the headphones. Nora's voice. June stopped breathing for a moment. The recording was filled with soft clicks and a low hum. Beneath the noise, Nora spoke with the calm strength June remembered. "We worked hard in that mill," Nora said. "Some folks may think our days were plain, but plain does not mean empty." June smiled. She could almost see Nora at the kitchen table, her silver hair pinned back, her hands wrapped around a mug of tea. "No honest life should disappear without a witness," Nora continued. "Someone ought to remember who showed up, who shared what little they had. and who kept the lights on for the next person. June looked through the glass wall of the archive room. Morning light now spread across the hall floor. It touched the card tables, the stage curtains, and the old case of medals. "That is why I'm here," June said softly. For the next 3 hours, she worked. She removed pops from the sound file. She cut away long sections of hiss. Little by little, Nora's voice became clear. Shortly before noon, the front door opened. A man entered in a dark wool coat. He was 39, with neat brown hair and polished shoes that clicked across the floor. "Miss Bell?" he called. June took off her headphones. "Yes?" "Eli Mercer." She knew the name. Mercer Development had already bought 3 blocks near the river. He came into the archive room and offered his hand. His smile was smooth, but his eyes moved over the shelves as if he were counting them. "I hoped we could talk," he said. June remained seated. About what? The future of this property. He placed a clean white folder on her desk. Inside were bright pictures of tall apartment buildings with glass balconies. "Luxury homes," Eli said. "New shops, better roads. Jobs, Bellwood deserves progress." "And the hall?" "We would remove it." The words were quiet. That made them feel colder. Eli tapped the folder. "My company is ready to make a generous offer. You could move these recordings somewhere else. They belong here. Tapes can be stored anywhere." June glanced at Nora's reel turning on the machine. These are people's lives. Veterans, mill workers, families who built this town. "I respect that," Eli said, "but respect does not pay for roof repairs." He took out another paper. "All we need from you is support for the sale. You would also turn the archive over to my company until a new home is found for it." June gripped the arm of her chair. "No," his smile faded a little. "You should read the offer. I do not need to." "Miss Bell, this building is old. It costs more each year. Sentiment cannot stop progress. The property belongs to a community trust," June said. "Do you have the original deed?" Her silence lasted too long. Eli leaned closer. "I heard the county records were damaged in the flood. The deed has been missing since then," June admitted. "But the trust is real. My grandmother helped create it." "Then find the paper." June lifted her chin. "I will not give you the archive. I will not support the sale." Eli closed the folder. "Memories cannot outweigh legal documents," he said. "You should keep that in mind." He walked out. June moved to the front window and watched his black car pull away from the curb. Her hands felt cold around the grips of Nora's crutches. She was unsettled. But she stood there until the car disappeared, her jaw firm and her choice unchanged. That same Monday afternoon, June shut down the recording machine and covered Nora's reel with a clean cloth. Eli Mercer's white folder still sat on the corner of her desk. She picked it up with 2 fingers and placed it inside a drawer. She did not want to look at the bright glass towers again. Outside, the cold had grown sharper. June locked the front door and started down the steps. Lift, brace, breathe on the 3rd step. The rubber grip on her left crutch twisted beneath her hand. June gasped. Her arm slipped forward. Her injured leg touched the stone, and pain shot through her knee. She caught herself against the iron rail. For several seconds, she stood still, breathing hard. "That was too close," she muttered. She pushed the grip back into place, but it turned again. She could not trust it. At the town shuttle stop, June sat on a cold metal bench and searched on her phone for a repair shop. Most nearby stores sold crutches, but none offered repairs. Then, she found a listing for Rourke Custom Garage. Under the name, someone had written a short review. He fixes what other people throw away. The town shuttle arrived 10 minutes later. June climbed aboard and told the driver where she needed to go. Rourke Custom Garage stood near the edge of town in an old brick building with 3 wide doors. Motorcycles were parked beside the wall. Their dark metal shone under the weak winter sun. A black sign above the entrance showed the name in silver letters. June hesitated. 2 large men in leather vests stood near one of the motorcycles. The patches on their backs marked them as Hell's Angels. One man laughed as he passed a wrench to the other. June tightened her hold on the bad crutch. Then the grip turned again. She went inside. Warm air touched her face. The garage smelled of oil, rubber, and fresh coffee. Tools hung in neat rows along the walls. A motorcycle engine rested on a metal table, taken apart piece by piece. Near the back, a broad-shouldered man knelt beside a wheelchair. He looked about 45. His dark beard held a few lines of gray, and his thick arms were marked with old scars. He wore work clothes under a black leather vest. A Hell's Angels patch covered the back. An elderly man sat on a wooden chair beside him. A faded army cap rested on his head. "The right wheel keeps pulling," the elderly man said. "I see it," the mechanic replied. His voice was low and calm. He turned the wheel slowly, then adjusted a small part near the brake. His large hands moved with surprising care. "Try that, Mr. Lawson." The veteran moved into the wheelchair and rolled across the floor. He went forward, turned, and came back. His face brightened, straight as a road through Kansas. "Not many straight roads left around here," the mechanic said. Mr. Lawson laughed. "What do I owe you, Gabriel?" "Nothing. I can pay." "I know you can." "Then let me." Gabriel wiped his hands on a cloth. "You already paid enough when you wore that uniform. Keep your money for groceries." The veteran's smile shook. He reached out, and Gabriel took his hand. "Thank you, Mr. Lawson said. Gabriel nodded once. "Come back if the brake gives you trouble." When the veteran left, Gabriel noticed June near the door. "You need a hand?" he asked. The question made her stiffen. "I need a repair," she said. "That I can do." June crossed the garage slowly. As she moved, she noticed photographs pinned to a board above the workbench. In one picture, Gabriel stood beside a child using a bright blue wheelchair. In another, he and several riders built a wooden ramp outside a small house. Other photographs showed repaired walkers, scooters, and hospital beds. Handwritten cards filled the spaces between them. "Thank you for helping Dad come home. My new wheels are fast. You gave me back my front porch." June's caution eased, though it did not vanish. Gabriel pointed to her crutch. "Loose grip?" She nodded. "It almost turned under my hand." "Let me see." June passed it to him. He checked the grip, the cuff, and the worn rubber tip. Then he looked at her other crutch. "These have seen a lot of miles. They belonged to my grandmother. That explains why they were built better than most new ones." He guided June toward a padded chair. "Sit before that leg starts arguing with you. It has been arguing all day. Legs are stubborn that way." While June rested, Gabriel removed the loose grip. He cleaned the metal beneath it, added a thin layer of strong tape, and fitted a new brown rubber grip that matched the old one as closely as possible. "You were an army mechanic?" June asked, noticing a framed photograph of Gabriel in uniform. "For 12 years. Motorcycles? Trucks, mostly. If it rolled, shook, leaked, or refused to start, it found me. He tested the new grip. It did not move. Then, he tilted the crutch. Something rattled inside the hollow shaft. Gabriel frowned and turned it again. There is something in there. June heard the soft click. She had heard it many times before. "Can I open the bottom and check?" he asked. She reached for the crutch. "Please do not." It was Nora's. "Your grandmother?" June nodded. "She used it for years. I want it left the way she had it." Gabriel studied her face, then handed it back without another question. "Your crutch," he said. "Your choice." June ran her thumb over the fresh grip. "How much do I owe you?" "Nothing. You cannot repair everything for free." "No, but I can repair some things." He looked toward the photographs. "My mother needed a wheelchair near the end of her life. The one she could afford hurt her back. The one she needed cost more than she had." His jaw tightened. "I was fixing army trucks then. Big machines worth more than her house. But I could not get my own mother a chair that fit." June looked at the wheelchair tracks on the clean floor. "So you started doing this?" Gabriel nodded. One chair became two. Then people brought walkers, crutches, and ramps. Folks should not have to suffer because a piece of metal costs too much. He took a small card from his pocket and wrote a number on the back. "This is my direct number. Call if that grip moves again. Call if the crutch fails." He paused, then added, "Or if you need dependable help." June accepted the card. By the time the shuttle returned her to Bellwood Community Hall, sunset had painted the high windows gold. She went inside to check the archive machines and make sure every reel was covered. The new grip felt firm beneath her palm. Beside the archive telephone sat a small wooden box filled with pencils and notes. June placed Gabriel's card next to it, with his number facing up. Then she switched off the lights, locked the hall, and went home. Tuesday morning brought gray clouds and a hard wind that pressed against the tall windows of Bellwood Community Hall. June sat on the floor beside an open filing cabinet. Papers covered the faded rug around her. Her crutches rested within reach, the new grip still firm and clean. Evelyn Price stood at the next cabinet with a pair of reading glasses low on her nose. She was 78, small and straight-backed, with silver hair curled neatly around her face. A yellow sweater showed beneath her brown coat. "I saved every receipt since 1994, Evelyn said. "If they ever make tax papers a form of art, Bellwood will own a fine museum." June opened another folder. Property tax, 1998. Put it with the others. They had made 3 piles. Tax records went on the left. Meeting notes went in the middle. Old news stories sat on the right. June picked up a newspaper clipping. The paper had turned soft and yellow with age. A black and white picture showed Norabelle standing on the hall steps beside a group of mill workers. The headline read, "Bellwood Hall opens its doors to all." June traced the edge of the picture. "She looks so young," she said. Evelyn leaned closer. She was 32, full of fire. "Your grandmother could make 10 tired men move tables just by lifting one eyebrow." June smiled. That sounds like her. It was her kind look that fooled people. Nora was kind, but she was not easy to push. June placed the clipping carefully on the right pile. By noon, they had emptied 4 cabinets. They found notes from trust meetings, lists of repairs, old insurance papers, and hundreds of small receipts. One receipt was for 12 folding chairs. Another was for paint used on the front doors in 1971, but they did not find the deed. Evelyn lowered herself into a wooden chair. Her hands shook as she removed her glasses. "I should remember where it went," she said. "You were not the only person keeping records," June replied. "I was the treasurer. Records were my duty. That was many years ago. Important paper does not become less important because time passes." June knew that tone. It was close to the one she used against herself. She pushed a box aside and sat in the chair across from Evelyn. What did Nora do with papers she did not trust to the cabinets? Evelyn looked toward the stage. Dust floated through a beam of pale light. "She used a bank box," Evelyn said at last. "A safe deposit box at Bellwood Savings. She kept trust papers there. Meeting books too, I think." June leaned forward. Could the deed still be there? Evelyn's face fell. "No, the bank called after Nora died. I went with your mother to empty it. There were family papers, 2 silver coins, and a small Bible. Your mother took everything home. Was the deed among them?" "I do not remember seeing it." June reached for her crutches. "Then I will ask the bank." That Tuesday afternoon, June sat across from a bank worker named Mr. Cole. He checked Nora's old account records twice. "The box was closed 6 years ago," he said. "Our form says all contents were released to the family." "Do you have a list of those contents?" "No. We do not record what customers place inside." June thanked him and left with no more than a copy of the closing form. On Wednesday, she went to the county records office. A flood had damaged the lower level years before. Old paper indexes had been dried, but many pages were stained brown or stuck together. The clerk brought June 3 heavy books and a box of damaged cards. For 5 hours, June searched. She found land records for the mill, the church, and several homes that no longer stood. She found Nora's name on a witness list from 1963. She found a note that spoke of a community trust. The page number beside it had washed away. The clerk searched the stored files, but no deed appeared. By Thursday afternoon, June was back at the hall. She placed the bank form and county notes on her desk. They looked thin beside Eli Mercer's bright white folder. Evelyn had gone home to rest. The hall felt larger without her. At 6 that evening, someone knocked on the front door. Eli stood outside in a dark wool coat. June did not invite him in. She stepped onto the stone landing and pulled the door almost shut behind her. "I hear you have been asking questions," he said. "I am checking the trust records. Then you know you have no deed. I know I have not found it yet." Eli's smile was small and cold. "This is your final chance to cooperate, June. Support the sale. Turn over the archive. I can make sure you are paid for your trouble." "The archive is not mine to sell. Neither is this building, from what I can see." June tightened her hand around her crutch. Eli glanced up at the old roof. "Buildings like this can become dangerous very quickly," he said. "A loose stair. Bad wires. A door that does not lock. You should think about whether it is wise to stay here alone." "Is that a threat?" "It is advice." He walked down the steps and entered a waiting car. June watched until it turned the corner. Then she went inside, locked the door, and called the police. An officer came 20 minutes later. He listened, wrote down Eli's words, and created an incident record. "You did the right thing by reporting it," he said. "But he did not name a crime or make a direct threat. We cannot act on this alone." June nodded. I understand. After the officer left, she checked every lock and turned on the lights in the archive room. Nora's final interview waited beside the recording machine. June sat down, placed the reel on the player, and began the transfer. June checked the clock on the wall. It was a little after 8. She picked up her phone and sent Evelyn a message. Still working on Nora's reel. I will leave as soon as it is finished. Promise, Evelyn answered almost at once. Lock the doors. Call me when you get home. June smiled and placed the phone beside the recording machine. Nora's voice came through the small speaker, soft beneath a layer of hiss. Bellwood Hall was never built by one person, Nora said. It took a whole town. Some gave money, some gave wood, some brought soup for the workers. Every gift mattered. June adjusted a dial. The hiss faded a little. Outside, the wind pushed against the windows. A tree branch scraped the brick wall. At 8:17, the ceiling lights flickered. Once, twice, then the archive room went dark. The recording machine slowed, and Nora's voice dropped into a deep, broken sound. A second later, the lights came back. June reached for the stop button. A heavy crash came from the rear of the hall. She froze. Another crash followed. Wood cracked near the back entrance. June grabbed her phone. Before she could unlock the screen, the archive room door flew open. 3 men stepped inside. They wore black leather vests over dark shirts. Large patches covered their backs, but the designs looked rough. The letters were crooked. One patch had been sewn on upside down. June's heart pounded. The tallest man had a red beard and a wide face. The second man carried a short metal bar. The third held a phone. "Stay where you are," the tall man said. June looked toward her crutches. They rested against the desk, just beyond easy reach. The man with the phone walked to a shelf near the door. He leaned the phone against a box and turned it until the camera faced the room. "Get the patches in the shot," the man with the metal bar said. The third man shifted the phone. "They are." June understood then. They wanted to be seen. The tall man pulled several sheets of paper from inside his vest. He dropped them onto the desk. "Sign this." June did not touch the pages. "What is it?" "A statement. It says this building is unsafe. It also says violent bikers control the property and have threatened you." Her fear sharpened into anger. "That is a lie. Sign it anyway." "No." The man with the metal bar moved toward the shelves of tapes. "Where are the originals?" "All recordings belong to the trust," June said. "You cannot take them." He pulled out a reel and held it by the edge. "Looks like I can. Put that down." The tall man stepped closer. His vest smelled of smoke and wet leather. "You have one chance," he said. "Give us the original tapes. Sign the paper. Then we leave." June's fingers closed around the edge of the desk. "No." For a moment, nobody moved. Then the man holding the reel smiled. He threw it across the room. The plastic reel struck the wall and broke. Brown tape spilled across the floor. June gasped. "Stop." The man grabbed another box. He tore out the reel and pulled the tape loose with both hands. The thin strip twisted in the air before falling around his boots. The other men began sweeping boxes from the shelves. Years of voices crashed to the floor. June reached for her crutches. She caught one and pushed herself up, but the man with the metal bar struck the shelf beside her. The sharp sound made her flinch. "Sit down," he ordered. "These people trusted me," June said. Her voice shook, but she stayed upright. "You will not erase them." The tall man shoved the desk. Its corner struck June's hip. Her injured leg folded under her, and she fell hard against the floor. Pain rushed through her knee and up her side. Her phone slid beneath a chair. The man with the metal bar overturned the nearest shelf. Boxes, reels, and folders poured down. Dust filled the air. June tried to rise. Her leg would not hold her. The tall man took both crutches. "Those are mine," she said. He looked at the old aluminum frames. Not anymore. He laid them across the edge of the work table. June's breath caught. "Please," she said. "They belonged to my grandmother." The man pressed down. The first crutch bent with a sharp crack. Then the second snapped near the lower shaft. The sound seemed louder than the breaking door. June stared at the ruined crutches. One rubber tip rolled under the desk. A faint rattle came from the broken metal, but the men were shouting, and she could not tell where it came from. The phone on the shelf kept recording. The men overturned another cabinet. One kicked the signed meeting books across the room. Another ripped tape from Nora's reel. June crawled toward her phone. Every movement sent pain through her leg. She pulled herself behind the archive desk and reached beneath the chair. Her fingers brushed the phone, then closed around it. She opened her contacts and pressed Gabriel's name. He answered on the first ring. "June?" She covered her mouth with one hand. Boots moved on the other side of the desk. "Gabriel," she breathed. His voice changed at once. "Where are you?" "At the hall." A box struck the floor nearby. Gabriel heard it. "Are you hidden?" "Yes. Are there men inside?" June looked at the broken crutches. "Please, they broke my crutches." "I hear you," Gabriel said. "Stay low. Do not come out." At his garage, Gabriel was standing beside dozens of riders who were checking motorcycles for their charity run. He pointed to one man and mouthed, "Call emergency services." Then he sent one urgent message to the riders. "Bellwood Hall. June is inside. Come now. No chasing. Protect the hall." "Police and paramedics are coming," Gabriel told her. "Keep the phone with you. Stay hidden. The attackers must have heard something outside." One of them cursed. "Move," the tall man shouted. Their boots pounded toward the rear exit. The broken door slammed against the wall as they fled. June pressed herself against the desk. Through the wind and the ringing in her ears, she heard a low rumble growing beyond the hall. Motorcycles were approaching. Seconds later, Gabriel turned onto the hall's street. His motorcycle leaned through the corner, then came upright with a roar. Behind him, headlights filled the road. The riders moved in two steady lines, close enough to stay together but far enough to stop safely. A dark van shot from the alley beside the hall. Its tires struck the curb. The van rocked hard, then raced past Gabriel. Through the front glass, he saw the tall man with the red beard in the passenger seat. Several riders began to turn. Gabriel raised one arm and gave a sharp signal. No chase. He shouted, "Let the police take them." The riders obeyed at once. The van vanished at the far end of the street. Chasing it would have put families, drivers, and the riders themselves in danger. Gabriel had not brought his brothers to start a fight. He had brought them to protect June. More motorcycles arrived. Their engines rolled through Bellwood like distant thunder. The riders parked around the hall in a wide circle, facing outward. One by one, they switched on their bright headlights. The dark grounds filled with white light. Exactly 70 Hell's Angels stood around Bellwood Community Hall. Some guarded the broken rear entrance. Others watched the street and kept the front steps clear. No one shouted threats. No one went after the van. Gabriel pulled off his helmet. "Dale and Marcus, with me," he said. Both men had first aid training. Dale carried a medical bag from his motorcycle. Marcus grabbed 2 flashlights. Gabriel pushed through the broken rear door. "June?" he called. The hall smelled of old wood, dust, and wet night air. Papers covered the floor. A broken tape reel lay near the wall, its brown ribbon tangled around a chair leg. "June, it is Gabriel." A weak voice came from the archive room. "I am here." He followed the sound. The room looked as if a storm had torn through it. Shelves leaned against the walls. Boxes had burst open. Recording tape stretched across the floor in dark, shining loops. Then Gabriel saw the broken crutches. His jaw tightened. He moved around the overturned desk and found June curled beneath it. She held her phone against her chest. Her face was pale, and dust clung to her hair. Gabriel crouched several feet away. "They are gone," he said. "You are safe now." June looked past him toward the door. "Are you sure?" "We saw their van leave. Nobody followed it." Her eyes filled with tears. "The tapes. We will take care of them." "My leg hurts." "I know." His voice softened. "Dale and Marcus are here. They know first aid. May we come closer?" June nodded. Dale checked her leg without moving it more than needed. Marcus placed a folded coat beneath her head. "The paramedics are almost here," Gabriel said. "I can stand," June whispered. "Not yet. I do not want to be carried out." Gabriel studied her face. He understood. The men had taken enough from her that night. He would not take her choice, too. "All right," he said. "We will only move you into the chair. Then the paramedics can help you decide the rest." He slid one arm behind her shoulders while Dale supported her injured leg. They lifted her slowly and carefully. June bit her lip as pain crossed her face, but she did not cry out. Gabriel helped her settle into the desk chair. "There," he said. "You are sitting up." Sirens reached the hall. Blue and red light moved across the windows. Police cars stopped at both ends of the street, and an ambulance pulled beside the front steps. The 70 riders opened a clear path. Paramedics entered with a rolling bed. They checked June's knee, hip, back, and head. One of them pressed gently along her leg, while the other watched her face. "You have some bad bruises," the woman said, "but I do not feel signs of a new fracture. We still want you examined at the hospital." June let out a shaking breath. Police officers secured every door and placed bright tape across the rear entrance. Detective Lena Shaw arrived soon after. She wore a dark coat and carried a small case for evidence. "No one touches anything until we photograph it," she said. Gabriel nodded. "Tell us where we can help." Once the police finished their first set of pictures, the riders went to work under Detective Shaw's watch. Some photographed each damaged shelf and broken lock. Others gathered loose reels by their edges and placed them in clean boxes. 2 men stretched a heavy cover across the broken doorway to keep out the wind. They moved with surprising care. Near midnight, a television van arrived. A reporter stood in front of the hall while a camera operator filmed the motorcycles. "Police are investigating possible biker violence at Bellwood Community Hall," the reporter said. June heard the words from the ambulance and closed her eyes. Gabriel stepped toward the police evidence table. A torn patch lay inside a clear bag. It had been found near the archive room door. He stared at it. The red letters were reversed. The wing design faced the wrong way. Even the colors were wrong, with dull orange thread where the real patch used red. Gabriel pointed through the plastic. "That is not ours." Detective Shaw looked at him. "Explain, He showed her each mistake. He spoke calmly while she took notes. Then he asked her to compare it with the patches worn by the riders outside. The night passed into Friday. Police lights faded against the first gray light of morning. The riders still stood around the hall, tired but quiet. Near dawn, Gabriel faced Detective Shaw beside the covered doorway. "Those men were not Hell's Angels," he said. "They were imposters." Sunrise spread pale gold across Bellwood. June remained near the front of the hall, wrapped in a gray blanket from the ambulance. The paramedics had cleaned a cut on her temple and placed a firm brace around her injured leg. They had urged her to go to the hospital, but after a doctor spoke with her by phone, she chose to stay until the police finished her interview. Evelyn Price sat beside her, holding a paper cup of tea. "You do not have to prove anything by staying," Evelyn said. "I know." June watched officers move through the damaged archive room, but they asked me to name what was taken. I am the only one who can. Evelyn placed one warm hand over hers. "Then I am staying too." Outside, Detective Lena Shaw stood with Gabriel near the line of parked motorcycles. Dawn showed every crease in Gabriel's tired face. He had not slept, neither had most of the riders. Lena held a photograph of the torn patch. "The letters are backward," Gabriel said. "The wing points the wrong way. The colors are not right either." "Could someone make a mistake when sewing one?" Lena asked. "Not all these mistakes at once." He turned and pointed toward the riders. "Look at ours. Same shape. Same place on every vest. Those men wanted a camera to see something that looked close enough from far away." Lena studied the real patches, then looked back at the evidence photograph. "You believe they wanted your club blamed. I believe they counted on people seeing motorcycles and becoming afraid." A rider named Dale approached with a phone in his hand. "We have pictures from the charity run," he said. "All of us were at the staging lot when June called." He showed Lena a group photograph taken beneath the bright sign of an old market. Motorcycles filled the lot behind the riders. A clock above the store entrance showed the time. Other riders brought more proof. One had a short video of Gabriel loading a repaired walker into a truck. Another had photographs of donated wheelchairs lined up beside the motorcycles. Several phones had messages sent within minutes of June's call. Lena took careful notes. "I will need copies of all of this," she said. "Original files, not pictures of screens." "You will have them," Gabriel replied. A small red motor scooter stopped near the police line. The rider pulled off her helmet. She was young, with dark curls pressed flat around her face. A square camera was fixed to the front of her helmet. She looked from the damaged hall to the 70 riders. "Is Detective Shaw here?" she asked. Lena stepped forward. "I am Detective Shaw." The young woman swallowed. "My name is Maya Torres. I make food deliveries around Bellwood. I saw the news this morning." She held up her helmet. "I think my camera recorded those men." June heard her from inside. Her fingers tightened around the blanket. Lena led Maya to a folding table near the police van. Gabriel stayed several steps back until Lena gave him permission to come closer. June rose with Evelyn's help and moved to the doorway, keeping her weight off her injured leg. Maya removed a small memory card from the camera. "I had a delivery on Willow Street at about 9:30, she said. "The short road behind the hall was blocked by a dark van. I went around it. 3 men were standing beside the open back doors." "Did you speak to them?" Lena asked. "No." "One shouted at me to keep moving." Maya rubbed her hands together. "I did keep moving. I thought they were workers." Then I saw the news and remembered the vest. An officer placed the card into a police computer. The screen showed a moving view of Bellwood's streets. Streetlights flashed across wet roads. Maya's gloved hands rested on the scooter bars. Then, the dark van appeared. It stood behind the hall with its rear doors open. 3 men were beside it. One was tall and had a red beard. June's breath caught. "That is him," she said. "He was the one who took my crutches." On the screen, the red-bearded man pulled a black vest over his shirt. Another man lifted a second vest from the van. The false patches shone under a street lamp. Gabriel leaned closer. "There," he said. "Those are the same wrong colors." The third man turned toward Maya as she passed. His vest was still open. Behind him, painted on the side of the van, was the faded logo of a building supply company. Maya froze the picture. "I know that company," Evelyn said quietly. "They worked on Mercer's new office." Lena asked an officer to search the name. The answer came within minutes. "Grayline Site Services," the officer said. "They are listed as a subcontractor for Mercer Development." A low murmur moved through the riders. Gabriel lifted one hand, and the sound stopped. The video jumped and broke into squares when the van's license plate came into view. Maya tried another frame. The numbers became a blur. "I am sorry," she said. "This camera is old. Sometimes the files get damaged." Lena shook her head. "Do not apologize. The plate is not all we have." She pointed to a deep dent above the van's right rear wheel. A strip of yellow paint crossed the damaged metal. The company logo was also clear on 3 frames. "This gives us a vehicle to find," Lena said. "And men to identify." She turned to one of the officers. "Open an intimidation investigation. Contact Grayline. Tell them not to move or repair that van. I want records of everyone who had access to it." By 8 o'clock, the news crew was live again. The same reporter stood in front of the hall, but her voice had changed. "New evidence shows the men who attacked Bellwood Community Hall were not members of the Hells Angels. Police have confirmed that the club members seen here arrived after the attack and helped protect the victim and preserve evidence." June looked toward Gabriel. His shoulders lowered a little. Then a white city car stopped beside the front steps. A city inspector climbed out carrying a metal case and a stack of forms. He examined the shattered entrance, the exposed wires near the archive room, and the broken lock. He spoke with another city worker, then pressed a bright orange notice against the front door. June moved closer. "What is that?" she asked. The inspector faced her with a troubled look. "An emergency closure notice," he said. "The entrance is damaged, the wiring is unsafe, and the city has received a claim that ownership of this property is disputed." He smoothed the orange paper flat. "Bellwood Community Hall is closed, effective now." June stared at the orange notice. 2 hours, she said. "That is not enough." The inspector glanced through the broken entrance. Tape cases lay across the floor. Some had been crushed. Others rested in careful rows where the riders had placed them. "I can allow 2 supervised hours to remove anything that may be harmed by weather or unsafe wiring," he said. "After that, I have to seal the building." A smooth voice came from the sidewalk. "That would be wise." Eli Mercer walked toward them with 2 attorneys beside him. His dark blue suit looked fresh and clean. He carried a leather folder under one arm. June felt Evelyn's hand tighten around hers. "What are you doing here?" June asked. Eli stopped below the front steps. I came because I heard about the attack, he said. I am deeply sorry you were hurt. His eyes moved to the broken door and shattered window. But this proves what I have been saying. This building is unsafe. It has become a danger to the whole area. The building did not attack me, June said. One of Eli's attorneys opened a hard case and removed a thick document. Eli gave June a sad smile that did not reach his eyes. I had nothing to do with what happened here. If anyone says otherwise, they will need proof. The men used a van from your subcontractor, Evelyn said. Many companies work for me. I do not control every vehicle or every worker. Detective Lena Shaw stepped closer. Miss Mercer, you should be careful about discussing an open investigation. Eli lifted both hands. Of course, Detective. I only came to protect my legal interest in the land. His attorney held out the document. This is a recorded transfer, she said. It shows that the Bellwood Mill Corporation sold this property to Mercer Development before the corporation was dissolved. Evelyn moved forward so fast that June almost lost her balance. That is not possible, Evelyn said. The mill did not own this hall. The community trust did. Do you have the deed? Eli asked. Evelyn's mouth opened, but no words came. June knew the answer. They had copies of meeting notes. They had old account books. They had letters that called Nora and several others trustees. But the original deed had been missing for years. The county lost many records in the flood, Evelyn said at last. Nora kept papers for the trust. Then where are they? Eli asked. Evelyn's face went pale. Gabriel stepped between her and Eli. At 45, he was broad and solid, with gray beginning to show in his dark beard. He did not raise his voice. You came with your paper, Gabriel said. You made your claim. Now let them save the tapes. Eli looked past him at the 70 riders. This is exactly the kind of threat the city should consider. Gabriel did not move. No one threatened you. Detective Shaw nodded toward Eli's car. You should leave the work area, Mr. Mercer. For one sharp moment, anger showed in Eli's face. Then it vanished behind his calm smile. My attorneys will file notice today, he said. This building should be cleared before someone else gets hurt. When he left, the riders went to work. Gabriel turned the 2 hours into a careful rescue. He asked the inspector which rooms were safe to enter. Only small groups went inside at one time. No one touched a box until June named its contents. Mill workers, years 1962 through 1968, June said. A rider wrote the words on a clean label. Box 12. Another rider called. Maya took a photograph of the sealed box, the label, and the person carrying it. Evelyn kept a list on a yellow pad. Detective Shaw watched the first boxes leave and made notes of her own. The motorcycles stayed parked. Several pickup trucks and a covered trailer carried the archive instead. A woman with short silver hair arrived just before noon. She wore a brown coat and held a worn briefcase. I am Ruth Kaplan, she told June. Evelyn called me. I help community groups when people with expensive suits think they will not fight back. Ruth read Eli's transfer document on the hood of a police car. Her finger moved down each page. This may be recorded, she said, but that does not make it true. We can challenge it. Can you stop him from taking the hall? June asked. For a little while. Ruth spent the afternoon making calls and filing papers. By 4, she returned with a court order. We have a 10-day judicial hold, she said. Mercer cannot enter, remove property, or begin demolition during that time. Evelyn let out a shaking breath. June watched Ruth's face. The attorney was not smiling. "What is wrong?" June asked. "At the ownership hearing, we need the original trust deed or strong proof that carries the same legal weight. Stories matter. Copies matter. But Eli has a recorded transfer. We must answer it with something stronger." By evening, every saved box stood inside Gabriel's garage. Clean sheets covered the work tables. The writers had placed the tapes away from oil, tools, and open doors. A full list hung on the wall, with each box number checked twice. Gabriel had also built June a pair of temporary wooden crutches. He had shaped the tops smooth and wrapped the grips in soft cloth. June stood on them outside the hall as the last city worker pulled a heavy chain through the door handles. The chain scraped against the old wood. A lock clicked shut. The bright orange notice moved in the evening wind. All 70 riders remained nearby. Some stood beside their motorcycles. Others held boxes of tools or cups of cold coffee. No one shouted. No one touched the city workers or blocked the street. Gabriel stood beside June. "We do this the right way," he said. One by one, the riders nodded. June rested her hands on the wooden grips and looked at the chained doors. The 70 riders stayed with her, calm and steady, committed to helping her save the hall without violence. Gabriel waited until the city truck turned the corner. Then he opened the covered trailer and checked every strap around the archive boxes. "Nothing moves unless June says it moves," he told the riders. No one argued. Rourke Custom Garage stood 6 blocks from the hall. Its red brick walls were dark with age, but the wide repair bays were bright inside. A painted sign hung above the doors. Below it, someone had added smaller words: "Repairs done right." Gabriel led the trucks through the side gate. Motorcycles followed at a slow roll. Their engines went quiet one after another. He crossed the garage and turned the sign on the front door from open to closed. One rider looked at the 3 motorcycles waiting for repair. "What about the weekend jobs?" "They can wait," Gabriel said. "Water damage cannot." He called each customer. His voice stayed calm and direct. "I have an emergency community job," he told them. "Your bike will be safe. I will call you Monday." Not one person complained. The garage smelled of rubber, metal, and soap. Gabriel opened the repair bays to let fresh air move through the room. Then he and several riders pushed tool carts against the far wall. They covered the motorcycle lifts with thick canvas. A group cleaned 3 long tables until the white cloths came away spotless. Another group washed their hands and put on soft gloves. June sat on a stool near the center table, her wooden crutches resting beside her. Her injured leg ached after the long day, but she kept her voice steady. "Before we open anything, we need 2 work areas," she said. "The first is for the hall archive. The second is for possible police evidence." Gabriel stretched a red cord across one corner of the garage. "Anything from the attack goes behind this line," he said. "Broken tape cases, footprints on paper, things the attackers may have touched." Detective Shaw had given him evidence bags, tags, and a written set of rules. He held up one clear bag. "If you think something may matter to the case, stop, do not clean it. Do not fix it. Do not even wipe dust from it." "What if we are not sure?" a rider asked. "Then we treat it as evidence," June said. Maya placed her camera on a small tripod. She took a picture of each box before anyone opened it. Evelyn sat with her yellow pad. "Box number, time opened, and names of everyone who touched the contents," she said. Speak clearly. My ears are old, but my pen is still fast. A few riders smiled. The careful work began. June showed them how to hold a reel by the center and the outer edge. No one touched the brown tape itself. This tape may look strong, she said, but it can tear or stretch. If it sticks, do not pull. A large rider named Cole held one reel as if it were a sleeping bird. Like this? That is perfect. At another table, volunteers removed damp paper sleeves and laid them flat between clean sheets. Small fans moved cool air across them. Gabriel warned everyone not to use heaters. Too much heat can ruin the tape, June explained. Each saved reel received a new number. The old sleeve stayed beside it so every name and date could be copied. Some labels were faded, others carried neat handwriting from 50 years before. A rider read one aloud. Bellwood Mill Holiday Dinner, 1971. Evelyn looked up. I served stew that night. Nora made 6 apple pies. For a moment, the room grew quiet. Then June smiled softly. Let us make sure people can hear it again. Near the office, Gabriel set Nora's broken crutches on a clean cloth. One shaft had been bent. The other had split near the middle where the attacker had struck it against the table. June watched him examine them. Can you keep those safe? She asked. Of course. I do not want anyone to throw them away. Gabriel looked at her. No one here throws away something just because it is broken. He wrapped each crutch in a clean cotton sheet. Then he carried them to a tall metal cabinet beside his private workbench. He placed them inside, closed both doors, and turned the key. June heard the lock click. Gabriel put the key on the ring attached to his belt. They stay there until you ask for them. Thank you. The work continued through the evening. Coffee appeared. So did soup, bread, and paper bowls from a diner down the street. People ate in turns, so the tables were never left alone. By 11, the garage walls held rows of fresh labels. Damp sleeves rested beneath the fans. Sealed evidence bags filled one shelf behind the red cord. Ruth arrived close to midnight. Her silver hair was damp from the cold mist outside. She set her briefcase on Gabriel's desk and handed June a typed page. This is what the court needs, she said. The original community trust deed would be best. Authenticated trustee records may also prove ownership, or we need solid proof that Mercer's transfer is false. June read the list twice. Meeting notes alone are not enough? They help, Ruth said, but we need records that can be checked. Signatures, seals, bank files, tax papers, something a judge can trust. Evelyn rubbed her tired eyes. We will start in the morning. Gabriel looked at June's swollen leg. You are not going back to your apartment tonight. June started to object, but Evelyn spoke first. Those outside stairs are loose, the light is broken, and the landing gets slick in damp weather. There is a small apartment above the garage, Gabriel said. My mother used it. I put in a service lift when she could no longer manage stairs. The lift carried June, Evelyn, and their overnight bags to the second floor. The apartment had 2 small bedrooms, a warm kitchen, and a faded blue sofa. Evelyn folded a blanket across the sofa while June rested her crutches against the bedside table. Below them, the last volunteers washed their hands and covered the workstations for the night. Gabriel checked the doors, turned off the bay lights, and left one lamp glowing in the hall outside the apartment. June lay back against the pillow. Evelyn settled into the next room, and the garage became still. June woke, with a cry trapped in her throat. For one wild moment, she was back beneath the archive desk. Boots struck the floor. Tape reels rolled past her hands. An attacker raised Nora's crutch and brought it down against the table. The sharp crack filled her head. June grabbed the blanket. Morning light rested against the curtains. The bedroom was quiet. Her heart was not. It beat hard enough to hurt. Then, a door opened below. Voices rose through the floor, followed by the scrape of chairs and the soft clink of coffee cups. A motorcycle rolled into the yard. Its engine stopped. More volunteers were arriving. Evelyn appeared in the doorway wearing a blue robe. "I heard you," she said. "I am fine." Evelyn gave her a long look. "That word is doing a lot of work." June let out a shaky breath. It was only a dream. Dreams can leave real fear behind. Evelyn helped her sit up. She brought the wooden crutches close and waited while June placed them beneath her arms. The trip downstairs took time. June hated every slow step. She hated the lift most of all. It moved with a low hum, gentle and steady, while Evelyn stood beside her. When the doors opened, warm air carried the smell of coffee and fresh bread into the lift. The garage had changed overnight. Every table was busy. Riders in clean gloves worked beside church volunteers, retired mill workers, and 2 college students. Maya photographed labels near the evidence area. Ruth sat at Gabriel's desk, reading old tax forms that Evelyn had brought from home. Gabriel stood near his private workbench. A pair of silver crutches rested against it. He picked them up when he saw June. "Morning," he said. "I made these for you." The crutches had padded grips and strong rubber tips. Small buttons along the shafts allowed the height to be changed. One cuff was blue. The other was black. Gabriel pressed a button and adjusted one shaft. The frames came from a pair someone donated last month. "The grips are new. I shaped the cuffs so they will not rub your arms." June did not reach for them. "They look expensive. They were built from donated parts. I cannot take another gift." The words came out harder than she meant. Several people glanced over. Gabriel lifted one hand, and the room returned to its work. He carried the crutches to an open space near the lift. "They are not a gift if that word bothers you," he said. "Call them equipment. That does not change what they cost." About 3 hours and 2 cups of coffee. Gabriel. He studied her face. "What is this really about?" June looked down at the rough wooden crutches beneath her arms. Shame pressed against her chest. "Since the accident, everyone has to wait for me," she said. "People carry things. They open doors. They change plans. Evelyn worries about stairs. You closed your garage. 70 riders left their own lives because I made one frightened call." Her voice shook. "I feel like a burden. Every time someone gives me something else, it feels like proof." Gabriel did not rush to answer. He rested one hand on the new crutches. "My mother used to say the same thing," he said. "She would sit in a broken wheelchair rather than ask me to fix it. She thought needing help made her weak." June looked at him. "She was the strongest person I knew," Gabriel continued. "But strength is not much use if pain keeps it trapped in one room." He held out one crutch. Accepting support does not erase strength. It helps strength travel farther. The garage seemed very still. Evelyn touched June's shoulder. "Take them, dear." June set one wooden crutch aside. Gabriel adjusted the new one beneath her arm. Then, he fitted the second. The soft grips felt strange. The cuffs held without pinching. June took one careful step, then another. Her weight spread more evenly. The ache in her shoulders eased. "Oh," she whispered. Gabriel nodded. "Better?" Much, then use them. A smile pulled at June's mouth. You are very bossy for a mechanic. So, I have been told. By noon, June could cross the garage without stopping. Each turn became smoother. She practiced near the tables while volunteers worked through the recordings. A restored reel played through a small speaker. An old woman's voice described a winter when the power failed across Bellwood. We opened the hall as a warming center, the woman said. Nora brought blankets. The bikers from the old repair shop brought fuel. Nobody asked who belonged. If you were cold, you came inside. Evelyn wrote the date on her pad. Another tape held the voices of veterans who had met at the hall every Thursday evening. They spoke about finding work, helping injured friends, and sitting together when sleep would not come. A third recording told how families had filled the hall after a river flood. Children slept on folded coats. Neighbors cooked soup in large metal pots. The stage became an emergency shelter for 12 days. The riders listened as they cleaned reels and copied labels. Late in the afternoon, Cole placed a tape on the player. The label read, Bellwood Heating Fund, 1988. A deep voice came through the speaker. Cole froze. That is my father. No one moved. His father spoke about paying heating bills for 6 families during a bitter winter. He had asked that his name never be shared. Folks do not need to know who helped, the recorded voice said. They only need to know they are not alone. Cole removed his gloves. His large hands trembled. He never came to my school games, he said. Never said he was proud of me. I thought he cared about nobody. The tape kept turning. I was wrong, Cole whispered. He covered his eyes. Another writer placed a hand on his back and stayed there. After a while, Cole wiped his face. I spent years being angry at a man I did not fully know. He looked at June. Save every word. We will, she said. By evening, all 70 riders had heard something that tied them to the hall. Some knew the names on the tapes. Others remembered meals, meetings, storms, or people who had once helped their families. The search was no longer only for June or Gabriel. It belonged to every one of them. June sat at a table with her new crutches beside her. She made a clear index on a large sheet of paper. Deeds, trustees, banks, lockers, land ownership. Beneath each heading, she left space for recording numbers, names, and dates. Gabriel divided the volunteers into listening shifts. Evelyn handed out fresh pencils. Maya set up extra players. Then the first group put on their headphones, opened their notebooks, and began to listen. Saturday night settled around the garage, but the work did not slow. Rain tapped against the high windows. Lamps shone over every table. The riders and volunteers bent close to tape players, copied minutes and boxes of faded papers. June moved between them on her new crutches. She checked labels and added notes to the large index. At 9:10, Evelyn lifted one hand. I found Nora. June crossed the room as fast as she could. Evelyn turned up the speaker. An older man's voice filled the garage. Nora Bell was the last recording secretary for the trust, he said. She kept the meeting minutes neat as a church Bible. If there was a vote, Nora wrote it down. If there was a paper worth saving, she made sure it was safe. June leaned closer. A woman on the recording asked, "Did she keep the original deed?" I believe she did. Do you know where? The old man gave a dry laugh. With Nora? Could have been anywhere. She never trusted places that looked important. The interview moved to another subject. June closed her eyes. Gabriel stood beside her. Does that help? It proves she was the last person known to have it. But not where she put it. No. June looked across the garage. Rows of boxes covered the tables. Each one held part of Nora's life. Lists, receipts, letters, copies of meeting notes. Yet the one paper they needed was still gone. She hid things in ordinary places, June said. Once she kept emergency money in an empty oatmeal tin. She hid my birthday gift inside a bag of cloth scraps because she knew I would never look there. Evelyn smiled. She kept the spare house key beneath a loose button in her sewing basket. June searched her memory. Nora's small kitchen came back to her. White cups hung beneath a shelf. A round clock ticked above the stove. Her gray coat rested near the door. Ordinary things filled every room. Nothing stood out. I cannot think of a place, June said. Gabriel placed a pencil beside the player. Then we keep listening. At midnight, Cole brought in bowls of hot soup from the church kitchen. Riders ate in turns while others stayed at the machines. At 2 a.m, the first listening team went home. A fresh group took their chairs. Maya slept for an hour on a folded blanket near the office. Ruth kept reading copied minutes until her eyes grew red. Sunday morning arrived pale and cold. Someone brought eggs and bread. Evelyn poured coffee into paper cups. June ate beside a box of tapes marked Founders. The hours passed in voices. A mill worker spoke of donating 2 weeks of pay to repair the hall roof. A mother remembered sewing curtains for the stage. A former trustee described the trust as permanent. It belongs to Bellwood, he said on the recording, not to the mill, not to one man, to all of us. Ruth wrote down the words, then sighed. Strong history, she said. But the court will still want the deed. By Sunday afternoon, dozens of recordings had been cleaned and restored. Fresh copies filled labeled cases along one wall. The volunteers had found names, dates, votes, and signs of the trust's purpose. They had not found the deed. At 6 that evening, Maya's phone began to ring. Then Cole's rang. Then 3 more phones sounded across the garage. Maya stared at her screen. Eli released a video. She connected her phone to a large monitor. The image showed Bellwood Community Hall on the night of the attack. Broken glass covered the steps. Motorcycles filled the street. Riders stood around the building beneath bright headlights. The clip did not show the attackers. It did not show June calling for help. It did not show the police or the paramedics. A serious voice spoke over the pictures. Residents are asking why an outlaw motorcycle club gathered around a public building moments after a violent attack. The video ended with Eli standing before a clean white wall. Bellwood deserves safety, he said. It deserves progress without fear. Angry voices rose in the garage. He knows exactly what he is doing, Cole said. He is making us look guilty. Another rider snapped. Ruth's phone buzzed. She read the message, then another. 3 council members have withdrawn their support for the hall, she said. One says he will not stand beside people who use fear. A chair scraped back. Let us tell them what fear looks like, a rider said. Gabriel stepped into the center of the room. No, his voice was quiet, but everyone heard it. He wants anger, Gabriel said. He wants shouting. He wants one bad picture he can use. Cole folded his arms. So we do nothing? Gabriel looked at the shelves of repaired wheelchairs, walkers, and crutches. We answer with the truth, he said. Not words. Work, he pointed toward the service board on the wall. Tomorrow, we hold a public service day. We fix porch rails. We repair wheelchairs. We deliver food. We install smoke alarms. Anything Bellwood needs. The room grew still. Gabriel looked at the riders one by one. "Let Eli show people a dark street and loud engines," he said. "We will show them who we are in daylight." Monday morning came bright and clear. 7 days remained before the hearing. At 7 o'clock, Gabriel stood outside the garage with a clipboard in one hand. 70 riders waited beside trucks, vans, and motorcycles. Some carried toolboxes. Others held bags of food, smoke alarms, fresh batteries, and pieces of cut wood. Gabriel divided them into teams. "Cole, take 12 riders to the veterans' apartments," he said. "Wheelchairs, scooters, walkers, check every brake and battery." Cole nodded. "Darren, your group has the porch rails. Do not leave a board loose." "Got it." "Smoke alarm team. Work from the list the fire station gave us. Test every alarm before you leave." Gabriel looked toward the tables near the garage door. Paper grocery bags covered them. Each bag had a name and address written on the front. "The rest of you are making deliveries. Be polite. Carry the bags inside if asked. Do not take pictures unless the person says yes." The riders began to move. June waited beside an accessible van. Her crutches rested against the seat. Maya had fitted a small camera to a padded grip so June could hold it without tiring her hands. "You ready?" Maya asked. June looked at the streets beyond the garage. People had seen Eli's video. Some now believed the riders had attacked the hall. Others were afraid to speak. June felt a tight knot in her stomach. Then she remembered the riders picking broken tapes from the wet grass. She remembered Gabriel kneeling beside her under the archive desk. "I'm ready," she said. Their first stop was a narrow blue house with peeling paint. 2 riders worked on the front steps while an elderly woman watched from the doorway. The old porch rail leaned away from the stairs. Each time Cole pushed it, the wood gave a weak groan. "No wonder you stopped using these steps," he said. The woman pressed one hand to her chest. "I nearly fell last month." Cole and another rider removed the rotten boards. They set new posts deep into the porch floor, then added a smooth rail that did not move at all. June lifted the camera. "Mrs. Benton, may I ask what you saw on the night of the hall attack?" The woman's smile faded. "I saw those riders arrive," she said. "They did not break that hall. They saved it." "Can you tell me what they did?" Mrs. Benton looked straight into the lens. "They moved back when the ambulance came. They carried boxes out of the rain. One of them took off his own coat and put it over a pile of tapes. That is what I saw." At the next house, riders installed 3 smoke alarms for a father with 2 young children. Across the street, another team carried groceries into the kitchen of a woman who had been ill all winter. June recorded each statement. A shop owner said the riders had swept glass away from the hall steps. A nurse said Gabriel had kept the road clear for the paramedics. A teenage boy said riders had searched the mud for broken tape cases with small flashlights. By noon, people were coming outside to watch. Some brought coffee, others offered sandwiches. A few stood back with folded arms, but their faces softened as the work continued. Near the veterans' apartments, Gabriel knelt beside an old red mobility scooter. Its owner, Miss Walter Ames, sat in a wooden chair and watched him. Miss Ames was 91. A framed photograph from the Korean War rested in his front window. In it, he stood in uniform, thin and serious, with snow behind him. "This scooter quits every time I turn left," Walter said. Maybe it has strong opinions. Gabriel smiled. Machines usually do. He removed the battery cover and studied the wires. One connection had burned dark. Another was almost loose. A local news crew arrived while he worked. The reporter from the night of the attack stood near the curb. Her camera operator filmed the tools laid in a neat row beside Gabriel. "Why are you doing this today?" the reporter asked. Gabriel did not look up. "Mr. Ames needs his scooter. Is this meant to answer Eli Mercer's video?" Gabriel tightened a new connection. "This is meant to help Mr. Ames get to the dining hall without being pushed." Walter gave a small laugh. "I do hate being pushed." Gabriel replaced the cover and turned the key. The scooter gave a soft hum. "Try it," he said. Walter moved into the seat. He drove forward, turned left, then made a slow circle on the walk. The scooter did not stop. Walter's face changed. His mouth trembled. "I have missed breakfast with my friends for 3 weeks," he said. Gabriel stood and wiped his hands on a cloth. "You will not miss it tomorrow." Walter reached out. Gabriel took his hand gently. The news camera caught it all. That afternoon, the report played across Bellwood. It showed new porch rails, full grocery shelves, tested smoke alarms, and repaired wheelchairs. It showed June listening, as residents told what had happened at the hall. Then it showed Walter driving his scooter in a slow circle. The reporter faced the camera. Residents who once feared the riders are now coming forward to say they protected the hall and served the neighborhood without asking for payment. Calls began reaching the garage. 2 council members said they wanted to review June's witness recordings. A church offered more food. A hardware store offered wood and batteries. Public opinion was changing. That evening, Maya sat at a work table when an email appeared on her phone. Her face went still. "Ruth," she called. Ruth crossed the garage. Maya turned the screen toward her. "Eli's attorney is challenging my helmet footage," Maya said. "He says the license plate is too unclear to connect the van to Mercer's subcontractor." June leaned over the table. The frozen image showed the van beneath a streetlight, but rain blurred part of the plate. Maya stared at it. Then she sat up straight. "A city bus passed me," she said, "right after I filmed the men changing clothes. I remember because I had to move close to the curb." Ruth pulled out her notebook. "Which route?" "Route 6. Going east. If its street camera caught the van, it may have a clearer image," June said. Ruth checked the time. Transit recordings are often erased on a short schedule. That file could be gone soon. "The office is closed," Maya said. "It opens at 8 tomorrow morning," Ruth replied. "We will be there before the doors open." Maya gathered her route logs. Ruth called Detective Shaw, and June wrote down the bus number Maya remembered. They made their plan to reach the transit office first thing Tuesday. Tuesday morning was cold enough to turn each breath white. June, Maya, Ruth, and Gabriel waited outside the Bellwood Transit Authority before the doors opened. The building stood beside a wide bus yard. Engines rumbled behind a tall fence, and yellow lights shone through the early mist. Maya held her delivery log against her chest. "I wrote the time down right after the order," she said. 8:43 at night. Route 6 passed me less than a minute later. Ruth checked the notes again. "That gives us a narrow time to search." June shifted her weight on her crutches. Her injured leg hurt in the cold, but she tried not to show it. Gabriel noticed anyway. "You can wait in the van," he said. "I can wait here." He gave a small nod. "All right." At 8, a man in a gray coat unlocked the front doors. Ruth stepped forward before he could turn on the lobby lights. "My name is Ruth Kaplan. I represent Bellwood Community Trust. We need to file an emergency request to preserve a public bus recording." The man blinked at the 4 people standing before him. "We just opened. That is why we came early." Inside, Ruth filled out a form at the front counter. She wrote the route number, direction, time, street, and the bus number Maya remembered. Maya placed her delivery log beside it. An employee named Mr. Hahn entered the details into a computer. His face tightened as he read the screen. "You came just in time," he said. "This file is set for automatic deletion at midnight." Maya gripped the edge of the counter. "Can you stop it?" "I can isolate the file so it is not erased with the rest, but I cannot release it without an official police request or a court order." Ruth took out her phone. "Detective Shaw is preparing the request now." Mr. Hahn nodded. "Once it arrives, I will save the full recording, not a copy of one moment. The full route file. That protects the evidence," Ruth said. "It also shows what happened before and after," Gabriel added. June looked through the glass doors toward the street. A bus rolled past, its side windows bright in the pale morning. They had reached the file in time. Still, it was not theirs yet. At 9:15, Detective Lena Shaw arrived with another officer. She carried an official request signed by a judge. Mr. Hahn read it, called his supervisor, and led them into a small room filled with computer screens. Ruth stayed close to June. "No one touches the original file," she said. "Mr. Hahn will make a legal copy and record each step." The first view came from a camera mounted near the front of the bus. On the screen, rain swept across an empty street. Headlights flashed over wet pavement. Then Maya appeared near the curb on her delivery bike. "There," Maya whispered. A dark van stood in an alley across the street. The bus drew closer. For one clear second, its lights covered the back of the van. The license plate came into view. Detective Shaw read the number aloud. Her partner wrote it down. "It matches the van used by Mercer's subcontractor," Shaw said. Mr. Hahn switched to a camera on the right side of the bus. 3 men stood beside the van. One pulled a black vest over his shirt. Another adjusted a false patch on his back. Gabriel leaned toward the screen. "Wrong colors," he said. "And that lettering is backward." Then a 4th man stepped from the front of the van. Maya pointed. "Who is that?" Detective Shaw paused the picture and enlarged it. June had seen the man standing behind Ely at public meetings. He was tall, with silver hair cut close to his head and a hard, square face. "That is Ely's security chief," June said. The recording continued. The security chief moved the men into place beside the van. He turned one attacker so the false patch faced the street. Then he held up a phone, checked the view, and pointed toward the rear entrance of Bellwood Hall. The bus microphone had caught only broken pieces of sound, but one sentence came through clearly. "Make sure the patches show when you film it." The room fell silent. June felt sick. The men had not only gone to frighten her, they had planned to create a public scene. They wanted people to blame Gabriel and the riders. Every broken tape, every smashed door, and every false patch had been part of it. Detective Shaw watched the recording twice more. "This supports conspiracy, intimidation, and tampering with evidence," she said. "It also connects the security chief to the van and the men." By Tuesday afternoon, police had obtained warrants to search the subcontractor's van and the security office. Officers found pieces of black cloth in the van, along with tape cases from the haul. In the security office, they carried away computers, phones, payment records, and a box that held more false club patches. News crews gathered outside Mercer Development. Eli came down the front steps in a dark suit. His face was calm, but his hand held the railing tightly. "My security chief acted alone," he told the reporters. "I knew nothing about this shameful plan. I will assist the police in every way." Detective Shaw made no public reply. She continued to follow the records and the evidence. That evening, June sat at the long work table in Gabriel's garage. On a nearby screen, the bus footage showed the van's plate in a bright square of light. The riders had been cleared. The staged attack had been exposed. But the closure order still hung on the wall. Beside it sat Eli's claim that his company owned the land. June touched the edge of Nora's tape box. "This proves why they attacked us," she said softly. "It does not prove the haul belongs to the trust." Ruth closed the evidence folder. "No," she said. "For that, we still need the deed." June looked across the garage at the rows of saved recordings. The truth about the attack could punish those who planned it, yet without the trust deed, the truth alone could not save Bellwood Community Hall. Wednesday morning brought a hard rain that drummed against the roof of Gabriel's garage. 5 days remained before the ownership hearing. June sat at the long work table with Nora's final interview in front of her. The reel rested inside a clean white tray. Several parts of the brown tape were bent. One section had torn loose during the attack. Detective Shaw entered through the side door. Drops of rain shone on her dark coat. Gabriel looked up from a workbench. "Any news?" Shaw removed her wet coat and hung it near the heater. "The security chief was detained before dawn," she said. "2 of the men who entered the hall are also in custody. Officers are searching for the 3rd attacker." Maya let out a long breath. She had been sorting tape boxes near the wall. "Are they talking?" she asked. "One attacker says he was paid to wear the vest and damage the hall. He claims the security chief gave the orders." June held still. "Did he name Eli?" No, the small hope in June's chest sank. Shaw stepped closer to the table. "We have strong evidence against the security chief. We have the van, the false patches, payment records, and the bus recording. But we still need direct evidence that Eli knew about the plot or ordered it." "He will blame everyone under him," Gabriel said. "That is what he is doing now," Shaw replied. "We will keep following the money and the messages." Ruth entered from the office with a folder under one arm. "And the ownership case?" she asked. "Separate matter," Shaw said. "The arrests will not settle who owns the land." June looked down at Nora's damaged reel. 5 days. The number seemed to press against her ribs. Detective Shaw noticed the tape. "Is that the final interview?" June nodded. "Grandma recorded it about 6 months before she died. I copied part of it years ago, but not all of it. This is the only complete reel." "Or it was complete," Maya said quietly. June touched the reel with one finger. "I may still be able to save some." Shaw placed a card on the table. "Call me if you find anything tied to the attack or the property records. Do not clean or repair any object taken from the crime scene without telling me first. This reel was released back to the trust yesterday," Ruth said. "I signed for it." Shaw nodded. "Then it is yours to restore." After the detective left, Gabriel locked the side door against the wind. The garage settled into a steady rhythm. Rain tapped the windows. A heater hummed near the archive shelves. Somewhere in the back room, water dripped into a metal bucket. June lifted the reel carefully. "We need the old player," she said. "The newer deck pulls too hard. It could tear the weak parts." Gabriel carried Nora's tape player from a shelf. The machine was square and heavy, with a faded silver face. Nora had used it for years in the hall. He plugged it in. Nothing happened. Gabriel frowned. He removed the cover and shone a small light inside. "The belt has cracked," he said. "One of the rollers is stuck too. Can you fix it?" He glanced at her. "You brought it to a mechanic." Despite herself, June smiled. Gabriel opened a drawer filled with small belts, wires, screws, and rubber rings. He chose a belt close to the right size and trimmed a soft rubber piece for the roller. At the table, June put on thin cotton gloves. She laid the torn tape across a smooth glass board. The brown strip looked almost weightless. In places, it had folded against itself. Maya watched from the other side. "How do you fix something that thin?" "Slowly," June said. She used a small tool to lift one folded edge. Then she pressed the tape flat beneath a clean sheet of glass. Her hands trembled once, and she stopped. Nora's voice lived on that narrow strip. June closed her eyes and took one deep breath. When she opened them, her hands were steady. Gabriel worked beside her. He cleaned dust from the tape heads and turned the stiff roller until it moved without a scrape. He did not rush. Every few minutes, he tested the wheel by hand. By noon, June had joined the first torn section with a small piece of repair tape. By 3, she had saved 2 more sections. The worst damage lay near the middle of the reel. Several inches had been pulled apart and ground beneath a boot. The sound there was lost. Gabriel replaced the cover on the player. "Ready when you are," he said. June placed the reels on the machine. She guided the tape through the rollers and across the clean heads. Gabriel pressed the switch. The reels began to turn. At first, only soft hiss came through the speaker. Then, Nora's voice filled the garage. It was warm, rough, and calm. "People like to say this hall was built with brick and timber," Nora said. "That is true, but it is not the whole truth." June leaned closer. It was paid for with 1,000 small kindnesses. $1 from one worker. A meal sold by one mother. A Saturday given by one carpenter. No single person built this place. That is why it must never belong to one wealthy person. Maya covered her mouth. The tape crackled, then cleared. "I placed the community's future where working people once kept what mattered." A sharp burst of noise followed. The tape jumped through the ruined section. Nora's next words were gone. June stopped the player. Gabriel examined the damaged strip, but there was nothing left to join. The brown surface had been scraped clean. Wednesday evening darkened the garage windows as June opened a notebook. Where working people once kept what mattered, she repeated. She wrote down 3 possibilities. Old mill lockers, bank boxes, union cabinets. "I will start with the former workers," she said. "Evelyn knows who is still in Bellwood. We can question them Thursday morning." Thursday morning arrived with pale sunlight and cold wind. By 8, folding chairs filled the open space in Gabriel's garage. Evelyn sat near the heater with a list of retired mill workers in her lap. She had called every name she could find. Some came with canes. Others leaned on sons, daughters, or old friends. One man arrived with a metal lunchbox from his mill days. Its blue paint had worn away at the corners. June placed a recorder on the table. "Thank you for coming," she said. "We are looking for anything Nora may have used to protect the hall's records." On her final tape, she said she placed the community's future where working people once kept what mattered. The first few people spoke of union cabinets and locked drawers at the mill. A woman named Alice remembered Nora carrying papers into the old bank. But she could not remember the year, and the bank had changed owners 3 times. Then, Walter Briggs raised a bent finger. Walter was 82. His white hair stood in soft tufts above his ears. He wore a brown coat with a missing button. "Working people kept plenty of things at the train depot," he said. June leaned forward. "What kind of things?" "Lunch money. Clean shirts, work boots, letters from home." Walter rubbed his chin. The mill had workers coming in from 3 towns. Some changed at the depot before walking over to the plant. Evelyn looked up sharply. There were lockers there. "Rows of them," Walter said. "Green metal ones, small doors with brass numbers." Gabriel stopped sorting tools at the far bench. "Did Nora use one?" he asked. Walter gave a slow nod. "I saw her near them more than once. She served on the workers' travel group, had a key tied to a red string, if I recall right." June wrote train depot lockers in her notebook. "Are the lockers still there?" Maya asked. Walter's face tightened. "The depot closed years ago. Part of the roof fell in. City sold the benches and signs. Might have sold the lockers too." Maya was already reaching for her phone. "I can call the city property office. Write down every answer," Ruth said from beside the work table. "Names, times, and who gives you the information." Maya nodded. Another man rose from his chair. His name was Samuel Pike. He had worked at the mill for 46 years. His hands were broad, with dark marks still buried in the lines of his skin. "I know about the trust deed," Samuel said. The garage became quiet. June set down her pen. "You saw it?" "I saw it signed." Evelyn gripped the edge of her chair. Samuel looked around at the waiting faces. It happened in the hall. Summer of 1978. Hot as an oven. Nora opened every window, but there was no breeze. He closed his eyes for a moment. 6 trustees sat at a long table. The mill manager was there too. They signed a paper saying the hall belonged to the community trust. Not the mill, not the city, the people. "Would you say that in court?" June asked. Samuel opened his eyes. "I surely would." Hope rose in June so fast that it made her dizzy. Ruth stepped closer, holding her folder against her chest. "Mr. Pike, your statement matters," she said. "It may help prove the trust existed and that the signing took place." Samuel gave a proud nod. "But?" Gabriel asked. Ruth looked at June. Her voice stayed calm and kind. "But Eli has a recorded transfer document. It claims the mill corporation sold the land to his company. Without the original trust deed, his lawyers will say Mr. Pike remembers the event wrong. They may also claim the deed was later canceled." Samuel's shoulders dropped. June reached across the table and touched his hand. "You still gave us something important," she said. "You gave us a witness." Samuel looked at her, then at the old workers around him. "I can give you more than that," he said. "I can bring people tonight. Folks need to hear what that hall meant." By early Thursday afternoon, the sealed hall's parking lot had become a busy work site. The chain still crossed the front doors. Red city notices covered the glass. Yet all around the closed building, people worked. Gabriel and several riders built a low platform from strong boards. Maya tested cables and carried speakers from the garage. Evelyn placed folding chairs in neat rows. Children tied white ribbons around the fence. June checked every recording twice. The wind pulled at her coat as she stood near the table of audio equipment. She looked at the hall's dark windows. For years, those windows had glowed during meals, meetings, music nights, and winter storms. Now they reflected only the gray sky. Gabriel walked up beside her. "You all right?" he asked. "I wish we could go inside, so does everyone here." June looked across the parking lot. More volunteers were arriving with chairs, lamps, and large pots of soup. Gabriel nodded toward them. A locked door cannot stop people from showing up. At sunset, the first residents came. Then, more followed. Families filled the chairs and stood along the fence. Older people wrapped blankets around their knees. Children sat on the curb. 70 motorcycles were parked in quiet rows beyond the crowd, their engines cold. Soon, hundreds of people faced the small platform. June stepped to the microphone on her crutches. "My grandmother believed no honest life should disappear without a witness," she said. "Tonight, the doors are closed. But the voices inside that hall still belong to all of us." She started the first recording. An old man's laughter rolled through the speakers. A woman near the front gasped. "That is my father." The recording told of a winter when mill workers carried coal to families whose heaters had failed. The woman began to cry. Her son put an arm around her. Another voice followed. A young mother from many years ago described baking pies to raise money for the hall roof. Two elderly sisters laughed when they heard her scold someone for stealing apples from her kitchen. "That was Mama," one whispered. The lot filled with sounds from the past. Work songs, prayers, stories of floods, layoffs, weddings, and shared meals. People laughed through tears. They called out names. They held one another close. At last, June placed Nora's restored recording on the player. Static moved through the speakers. Then, Nora spoke. "People like to say this hall was built with brick and timber. That is true, but it is not the whole truth." The crowd became still. It was paid for with 1,000 small kindnesses. $1 from one worker. A meal sold by one mother. A Saturday given by one carpenter. No single person built this place. That is why it must never belong to one wealthy person. When the recording ended, silence held for several heartbeats. Then, Samuel Pike stood. "I will give 1 month of my pension if it helps save the hall." A carpenter raised his hand. "I will give my labor." "I can repair windows," another man called. "My restaurant will feed the workers," a woman said. Offers rose from every part of the crowd. Roof work, paint, legal help, cleaning, money in small folded bills. 3 city council members stood near the back. One stepped toward the microphone. "If trust ownership is proven," she said, "the council will consider historic protection for Bellwood Community Hall." Cheers swept across the parking lot. As darkness settled, children and older residents placed candles around the chained hall. Small flames lined the fence, the steps, and the cracked stone path. June stood beside Gabriel and watched warm light circle the building. 4 days remained, yet the hall no longer looked forgotten. It stood inside a bright ring of hope, surrounded by the people whose voices and kindness had given it life. Friday morning, rain tapped against the courthouse windows. June sat beside Ruth at a long wooden table. Her new crutches rested against her chair. Gabriel sat behind her, his large hands folded over his knees. Maya was beside him, holding a copy of her route log. Across the room, Eli Mercer wore a dark blue suit. His silver tie caught the light each time he moved. Two attorneys sat beside him with thick folders and clean white papers. The judge entered. Everyone rose. For the next hour, Ruth spoke in a calm, steady voice. She showed the bus footage on a large screen near the judge's bench. The room watched a van stop beside the old pharmacy. 3 men stepped out. One carried the fake biker vests. Another spoke with Eli's security chief near the back of the van. Then the men practiced where to stand. One turned, so the false patch faced the street. The judge leaned closer to the screen. Ruth paused the video. "This matches the time and place shown in Maya Torres's route log," she said. "It also supports her helmet recording and her witness statement." Maya's fingers tightened around the edge of her chair. Eli's attorney rose. "The video does not show Mr. Mercer. It shows his security chief," Ruth replied. "It shows a van linked to a Mercer subcontractor. It also shows the men preparing false club clothing before the attack." The judge looked toward Eli's table. "Has Mercer Development continued to share the shorter video showing motorcycles around the hall?" Eli's attorney cleared his throat. "The company shared information that was available to the public." "That was not my question," the judge said. Silence filled the room. "Yes," the attorney answered at last. The judge removed her glasses. "The shorter video leaves out facts that change its meaning. It shows the Hells Angels after the attack, but not the 3 disguised men who caused the damage." Gabriel did not move. June saw a muscle tighten in his jaw. The judge continued. "Mercer Development is forbidden from using or sharing that misleading video. The company must also preserve all emails, phone records, security files, contracts, payments, and messages tied to the hall, the security chief, and the subcontractor." Eli leaned toward his attorney and whispered something. The judge lifted one hand. "Nothing is to be deleted, changed, moved, or destroyed." Ruth placed both palms on the table. "Thank you, Your Honor." The order did not settle ownership. The judge made that clear. Eli's transfer paper still had to be tested against the trust claim. But when June left the courtroom, the cold air felt easier to breathe. Outside, Detective Lena Shaw waited near the courthouse steps. "That preservation order matters," Lena said. "Records have a way of speaking when people do not." Before noon, more good news arrived. The city had approved a conditional permit for volunteers to enter the hall grounds. They could brace the damaged entrance, cover the leaking roof, and protect the walls from more rain. The permit did not decide who owned the building. A city inspector had to watch the work. No one could remove records or change the main structure. June read the paper twice. "We can help it," she whispered. Gabriel nodded. "Then let's get to work." By Friday afternoon, the street outside Bellwood Community Hall rang with hammers, saws, and calling voices. All 70 riders came. They worked beside carpenters, roofers, union retirees, and neighbors. Some carried heavy boards. Others raised ladders or passed up rolls of thick roof covering. 2 women from a local church served hot coffee from a folding table. Samuel Pike stood near the entrance in his old work coat. He showed a young carpenter where the frame had first been joined. "Brace that side too," Samuel said. "This old place is stubborn, but it likes a little help." The carpenter smiled. "Don't we all?" At the front doors, Gabriel guided a wide support beam into place. His club vest was covered by a brown work apron. Dust rested in his beard. "Easy," he called. "Lift together." 6 pairs of hands raised the beam. No one tried to be the hero. They watched one another. They shared the weight. June sat near Evelyn and labeled boxes of rescued tapes. Each time a worker found a loose photo, paper, or bit of recording film, it came to her table. Around 3, sunlight broke through the clouds. Evelyn touched June's arm. "You have been staring at that open path for 10 minutes. June looked toward Gabriel. He stood several steps away, wiping his hands on a cloth. "I want to try," June said. Gabriel came closer. "How far?" "To Evelyn." Evelyn rose at once. She moved a few feet away and held out both hands. June placed her crutches beside the table. The sounds of work slowly faded. She stood with one hand on Gabriel's arm. Her injured leg trembled. Fear pressed hard against her chest. "What if I fall?" she asked. Gabriel's voice was low. "Then we catch you." June let go. She took one step. Pain pulled through her leg, but it held. Then she took another. Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. "Come on, sweetheart." June took a third step, then a fourth. She reached Evelyn and fell into her open arms. The parking lot burst into applause. Workers clapped from the roof. Riders raised dusty gloves. Samuel Pike gave a loud cheer that made everyone laugh. Gabriel stood where June had left him, smiling. 4 steps. June said, breathless. 4 brave ones, Evelyn replied. By sunset, strong beams held the entrance steady. Fresh coverings sealed the worst holes in the roof. The city inspector walked around the hall, checked the braces, and signed the final page of the permit. "Temporarily secure," he said. A careful cheer rose from the tired volunteers. Ruth arrived with her folder tucked under one arm. "The final title hearing is set for Monday morning," she told them. "The court will hear the trust claim and Mercer's transfer claim." Maya handed June a cup of hot soup. After today, his case has to be getting weaker. Ruth gave a small nod. The false video has been stopped. His records are protected by court order. And we have witnesses. No one called it a victory yet. Still, as the last sunlight warmed the sealed roof, people shared soup, shook hands, and rested on stacks of lumber. The hall stood secure behind them, held up by fresh beams and many willing hands. For that evening, cautious hope was enough. Saturday morning began with maps spread across 6 folding tables in Gabriel's garage. June sat beneath a bright work lamp with Nora's old notes beside her. The pages smelled of dust and smoke. Some were written in blue ink. Others were in pencil so faint that June had to tilt them toward the light. Volunteers moved between the tables. They compared old maps of the mill, the train depot, and the streets around Bellwood Hall. Evelyn tapped one map with a careful finger. "This was the mill office," she said. Workers collected their pay here. Samuel Pike leaned over her shoulder. And these were storage rooms. They were torn down years ago. June played parts of Nora's final recording again and again. Nora's warm voice filled the garage. "The safest box is the one no thief would value." Each time June heard the words, she felt close to an answer. Yet every path seemed to end at an empty lot, or a building that no longer stood. Maya searched city records on a laptop. Riders called retired mill workers and former depot staff. Gabriel moved from table to table, bringing coffee and asking quiet questions. By sunset, they had marked 11 places. None had produced the deed. On Sunday morning, Ruth arrived before 8. Rain clouds pressed low over the town. Her coat was still wet from the walk between her car and the garage. She carried a thin city file. "I found the depot property list," she said. Everyone gathered around. Ruth opened the file and placed a photograph on the table. It showed a row of tall metal lockers inside the old train depot. Rust covered the doors. White numbers had been painted above the handles. June leaned closer. Those could be the boxes Nora meant. "They could have been," Ruth said. "But the lockers were removed 6 years ago." June looked up. "Removed where? The record does not say." "The depot was cleared before repair work began. The city hired a salvage company, but that company closed 2 years later." The hope in the room sank into silence. Gabriel studied the photograph. "Do we know who bought the company's stock?" "Not yet," Ruth said. "I have asked for the sale records, but city offices are closed today." June pressed her hand against her injured leg. Monday's hearing was less than a day away. They kept working. Then, shortly after 3 that afternoon, Ruth's phone rang. She answered near the open garage door. As she listened, her back became stiff. "I understand," she said. "Send me the full copy now." A few minutes later, papers came through Gabriel's old printer. Ruth read the first page, then the second. "What is it?" June asked. Ruth placed the pages on the table. "Eli's attorneys have filed a new transfer paper. It claims the mill corporation sold the hall land to a private company before the community trust took effect." Evelyn stared at the date. "That is not true. The trust already held the hall. I believe you," Ruth said. "But this paper carries a notary seal and 2 witness names. On its face, it looks legal." Gabriel pointed to a signature. "Looks too clean for something this old." "That bothers me too," Ruth said. "So does the paper, the ink, and the way the seal sits on the page. I suspect it is false." "Then prove it," Maya said. Ruth's face softened. "Full testing could take days. We have hours." June felt the room close around her. All their work, all those saved voices, could be pushed aside by one clean sheet of paper. Outside, thunder rolled. By evening, the storm had settled over Bellwood. Rain struck the garage roof in hard waves. Wind shook the doors. A rider near the back wall shouted, "Leak." Water poured through a new crack in the roof. It splashed onto a shelf holding restored tape boxes. Everyone rushed toward it. Gabriel pulled the shelf away from the wall. Maya grabbed boxes and passed them into waiting hands. June moved as fast as her crutches allowed, but several boxes were already wet. Dark stains spread across their labels. "No," June whispered. She lowered herself beside them. Water had reached the edges of 3 reels. A paper list tore when she tried to lift it. "This is my fault." Gabriel knelt across from her. "The roof leaked. I brought the archive here. We all agreed." "I keep asking people to save things," June said. Her voice broke. "The hall, the tapes." "Me," Evelyn crouched beside her. But June stared at the wet boxes. What if some things cannot be repaired? No one gave her an easy answer. Later, when the tapes had been moved to dry tables, Ruth sat beside June. The storm rattled the windows. "I will fight every claim they make tomorrow," Ruth said. "But I need to be honest. Without the original deed, the judge may accept their transfer paper." June looked at her. "You mean we may lose?" "Yes," Ruth said quietly. "We may." Near midnight, only a few volunteers remained. Buckets stood beneath the leaks. Gabriel checked each one, then saw Nora's broken crutches lying near a spreading line of water. He picked them up. Something rattled inside one hollow shaft. Gabriel froze. He turned the crutch slowly, listening. Then he carried it to his workbench and pulled off the damaged rubber tip. A tiny brass key wrapped in faded paper slid from the hollow shaft. Gabriel caught the brass key before it dropped through the floor drain. His hand closed around it, inches above the metal grate. For 1 second, he stayed there on one knee, his broad shoulders bent over the wet floor. Then he let out a slow breath. That was close. June pushed herself up from the chair. One crutch pressed beneath her arm. The other rested against the table. "What is it?" Gabriel rose and opened his hand. A tiny brass key lay across his palm. Water from his fingers shone on its worn edges. A strip of faded paper had been wrapped around the narrow stem. Everyone still in the garage moved closer. Maya lifted a work lamp and aimed it toward the bench. Evelyn came from the drying tables with a clean cloth in her hand. Ruth shut the file she had been reading. Gabriel placed the key on the cloth. "It came from inside Nora's crutch," he said. June stared at it. For years, she had heard the faint rattle inside that hollow metal shaft. She had thought it was a loose screw or a small piece of broken metal. Even Gabriel had fixed the grip without opening the bottom. Now, the sound had a shape. A key. Her grandmother had hidden a key inside the crutch she used every day. June reached for the paper, then stopped. Her fingers were wet. "Let me dry my hands." Maya passed her a towel. June rubbed each finger with care. Then, she picked up the wrapped key and carried it beneath the bright work lamp. The paper felt thin and soft. One corner had begun to tear. June slid the key free and unfolded the note over the cloth. 3 lines of blue ink crossed the faded page. June's breath caught. That is her writing. Evelyn leaned closer. Tears filled her eyes before she had read a single word. "I would know that hand anywhere," she said. Nora wrote every meeting note that way. Small letters, straight lines, never wasted an inch of paper. June touched the edge of the note. She remembered grocery lists on Nora's kitchen counter. Birthday cards kept in the top drawer. Labels on old recording cases. The same firm letters were here. June read the message aloud. "For the day they try to take what belongs to everyone." Rain beat against the roof. Water dripped into the buckets. No one spoke. June read the words again, this time in a whisper. Nora had known. Maybe she had not known the name of the person who would come for the haul. Maybe she had not known when it would happen. But she had prepared for it. June closed her eyes. All evening, she had blamed herself. She had looked at the wet tapes and seen only damage. She had asked what could not be repaired, yet the broken crutch had held something precious. Gabriel stood beside her, silent and steady. June looked at him. If they had not broken it, we might never have opened it. He gave a small nod. Your grandmother knew people throw broken things away. But we did not. No, Gabriel said. We did not. Ruth picked up the key with the cloth and turned it under the lamp. A number had been stamped near the round top. 417, she said. Maya brought over the photograph of the depot lockers. She placed it beside the key. The white numbers above the locker handles had a plain, narrow shape. The stamped numbers on the brass key looked much the same. June pointed to the photograph. These numbers. Gabriel lowered his head to compare them. Same style. Close to it, Ruth said. We should not claim more until someone confirms it. Evelyn straightened so quickly that her chair scraped the floor. Walter Dunn. Everyone looked at her. He supervised the depot before it closed, Evelyn said. Nora knew him. Walter assigned employee lockers and kept the spare keys in a locked cabinet. "Is he still living in Bellwood?" June asked. "Yes, he moved to a small house near the old church." Evelyn hurried to her purse. She pulled out a small address book held together with a rubber band. Its pages were crowded with names, numbers, and notes written in green ink. Maya checked the clock on the wall. It was 12:23. "You are going to call him now?" she asked. Evelyn gave her a firm look. "Walter worked the night shift for 30 years. If he is asleep, he can forgive me tomorrow." She found the number and dialed. The garage became still. After several rings, a rough voice answered. "Hello? Walter, it is Evelyn Price. I am sorry to call so late." A pause followed. "Evelyn? Has something happened?" "Yes, we found an old brass key. It may have belonged to Nora Bell." June watched Evelyn explain the number and describe the stamp. Walter asked her to repeat it twice. Then his voice grew clearer through the phone. 417, he said. "That is an employee locker number." The brass keys had the same number as the locker door. Evelyn gripped the phone with both hands. "Do you remember what happened to the lockers?" "They were pulled out during the depot renovation," Walter said. "Public Works handled the removal. A salvage contractor took them away." "Do you know which contractor?" "No, but the Public Works job file should list the company, the truck records, and where the metal went." Ruth was already writing. Evelyn thanked Walter and ended the call. Ruth looked at the key, but she did not touch it again. "We need to protect this as evidence. From this moment on, everyone should record who handles it and where it goes." Gabriel reached for his phone. "Detective Shaw." Ruth nodded. Gabriel called. Lena Shaw answered on the fourth ring, her voice tired but alert. He told her about the key, the note, and Walter's statement. "Do not clean the key," Shaw said. "Do not place it in anyone's pocket. Photograph it where it is." Maya began taking clear pictures. Shaw continued, "I will meet you at the municipal office. I can document the records, search, and preserve anything recovered. If you find that locker, we need a clean record of every step so the court can use what is inside." At 12:45, Gabriel stepped into the center of the garage. Several riders looked up from the tape tables. Others stood near the doors, waiting. Gabriel held up one hand. "We are not going to anyone's home," he said. "We are not confronting Eli or his people. Detective Shaw is meeting us at the municipal office." His eyes moved across the room. "What we need is a lawful records search. We need calm heads, careful hands, and people who can follow instructions." He paused. "Who is willing to help?" At 1:15 in the morning, June entered the Public Works office on one crutch, with Gabriel close beside her. The building smelled of dust, old paper, and strong coffee. Pale lights hummed above a row of empty desks. Rain tapped the dark windows. Detective Lena Shaw stood near the front counter. An older man in a blue work shirt hurried from a back room, pushing his glasses into place. "I am Martin Cole," he said. "The on-call supervisor." Shaw showed him her badge and explained the search. She kept her voice calm. She told him they needed records from the train depot renovation, mainly the removal of the employee lockers. Martin looked at the brass key, which now rested inside a clear evidence bag. 417, he read. "How soon do you need this?" "Before 8 this morning," Ruth said. Martin stared at her. "You folks do not pick easy hours." "No," Evelyn said. "We have never had much talent for that." Martin gave a tired smile. Then he led them into the records room. Tall metal shelves filled the narrow space. Boxes covered 2 long tables. Each box had a date and job number written across the side. Only June, Gabriel, Ruth, Evelyn, Maya, Shaw, and Martin entered. The riders remained outside near their motorcycles. Some searched public records on their phones and sent possible company names to Gabriel. Others stood under the wide roof above the main entrance, silent except for an occasional low voice. Gabriel had been clear. No one would touch a public file unless Martin or Shaw asked them to. June lowered herself into a chair while Martin searched a computer. Her leg throbbed beneath the brace, but she kept her eyes on the screen. Depot work started 3 years ago, Martin said. There were 5 separate contracts. Can you search for metal removal? Maya asked. Martin typed several words. A list appeared. Roof panels. Pipes, old signs. He scrolled farther. Here, interior fixtures and storage units. Ruth stepped closer. What is the job number? Martin read it aloud. Evelyn moved down the shelves, scanning the labels. Shaw followed her and found the matching box on the bottom row. I will remove it, Shaw said. She pulled on gloves, lifted the box, and carried it to the table. Maya used her phone to photograph the sealed record tag before Martin opened it. Inside were work orders, bills, truck sheets, and faded copies of shipping papers. June watched each page pass beneath the light. The depot lockers had once stood in long rows. She could picture Nora there after a mill shift, tired hands opening locker 417. Perhaps Nora had placed the deed inside, while the station still echoed with footsteps and train whistles. Gabriel touched June's shoulder. You doing all right? She nodded. I keep thinking about how long she planned this. She planned it so someone would find it, he said. At 1:43, Martin unfolded a large shipping manifest. Here we are. Shaw placed a ruler beside the paper so Maya could take a clear picture. The form listed 86 steel employee lockers removed from Bellwood Depot. The destination appeared near the bottom. Bellwood Architectural Salvage. Gabriel read the address. That is out by the old lumber yard. Martin checked another sheet. The company is still active. Owner is Samuel Pike. Maya searched the public business database. I found a phone number. Shaw called it. No one answered. She waited, then called again. This time, a sleepy man picked up. This is Detective Lena Shaw with the Bellwood Police Department, she said. I am sorry to wake you. We need access to your inventory records because of an urgent court matter. The man asked several questions. Shaw gave her badge number, the police office number, and Martin's name. Then she waited while he called the station to confirm her identity. The room grew quiet again. June looked through the glass door toward the riders outside. Wet motorcycle seats shone beneath the lights. 70 people had answered one frightened call. Now they waited without pushing, shouting, or demanding. They were giving the truth room to stand on its own. At 2:10, Shaw's phone rang. She answered, listened, and nodded. Thank you, Mr. Pike. We will meet you there. She ended the call. He verified the emergency. He will open the warehouse. They returned the files to the box under Martin's watch. Shaw signed the record sheet and took certified copies of the manifest. A few minutes later, the group left in 3 vehicles. The riders remained behind or continued searching sales records from the public database. June rode with Gabriel, Ruth, and Evelyn. Rain streaked the windows as they passed empty shops and dark houses. Ruth called the court clerk. This is Ruth Kaplan. "Counsel for the Bellwood Community Trust," she said. "I am requesting a short delay in this morning's hearing. New evidence has been located, and Detective Shaw is supervising its recovery." She listened, her face tight. "I understand. Please tell the judge the request concerns original property evidence." After another pause, Ruth thanked the clerk and ended the call. "What did she say?" June asked. "She can inform the judge," Ruth replied. "She cannot promise a delay." At 2:45, they reached Bellwood Architectural Salvage. A gray-haired man unlocked the warehouse door and waved them inside. Rows of old windows, doors, signs, and metal cabinets filled the vast space. "Some depot lockers were sold," Samuel Pike said. "Restaurants bought a few. A school took others for a play." June tightened her hand around the crutch grip. Samuel pointed toward a small office above the warehouse floor. "But I keep an inventory ledger. It should tell us whether locker 477 is still here." At 3:00 in the morning, Samuel Pike sat at a scarred wooden desk in the small office above the warehouse floor. 3 thick ledgers lay before him. Their cloth covers had faded from black to gray. Dust clung to the edges of the pages. Detective Shaw stood beside the desk with her phone recording. "For the record," she said, "Mr. Pike is opening the inventory ledger for the year the Bellwood Depot lockers arrived." Samuel rubbed his tired eyes. "I wrote every sale by hand back then. The computer system cost too much. Handwritten records are fine," Ruth said. "Please tell us what you find, but do not remove any pages." Samuel nodded and opened the first ledger. Each page held lines of careful writing. There were dates, item numbers, buyer names, and prices. Samuel ran one finger down the entries, while Shaw kept the phone pointed at his hands. June stood near the office door. Her leg felt heavy, and the grip of her crutch pressed into her palm. Gabriel remained at her side, close enough to catch her if she lost her balance, but he did not crowd her. Evelyn and Maya waited by the steps. "Depot lockers," Samuel said at last. "They start here." Ruth leaned closer. Samuel read the numbers one by one. Several had gone to a restaurant. 12 had been sold to a private school. 4 had gone to a theater group in another town. Then his finger stopped. "This is odd." June's breath caught. "What is it?" Samuel turned the ledger toward Shaw without lifting it from the desk. "Locker Bank 41 through 48, he said. "That group was marked damaged, heavy rust along the lower frames. No sale." "Would that include Locker 417? Maya asked. "It should." "We shortened the old depot numbers in our inventory. 417 became 417 in the notes." Samuel pulled the second ledger closer. He searched several more pages, then tapped a line near the bottom, moved to rear aisle C covered storage. "Is it still there?" Gabriel asked. Samuel looked toward the dark warehouse below. If no one moved it without writing it down, yes, they went down the metal steps. The warehouse seemed even larger from the floor. Their footsteps echoed between stacks of old doors and tall shelves. Samuel switched on lights as they walked, but several bulbs failed to wake. Long shadows rested across the aisles. Shaw recorded the path on her phone. She spoke each location aloud. Leaving the office. Entering rear aisle C. Mr. Pike is leading. No item has been touched. At the far end of the building, Samuel stopped before a high pile of red theater seats. The seats had cracked cushions and dark wooden arms. They were stacked on their sides beneath a dusty canvas sheet. Samuel stared at them. I forgot these were here. What is under them? June asked. The depot lockers. Gabriel studied the pile. Let us move the seats carefully. Shaw lowered her phone for a moment. Only Mr. Pike and Gabriel. I will record each piece as it is moved. Samuel agreed. Gabriel pulled on work gloves from his jacket pocket. He and Samuel lifted the seats one section at a time. They carried each section a few feet away and set it on the floor. Dust rose in pale clouds. Maya covered her mouth with her sleeve. After several minutes, a row of tall steel doors appeared beneath the canvas. Rust covered the lower corners. Flakes of old green paint clung to the frames. June moved closer. The numbers were hard to read at first. Gabriel wiped the dust away with a clean cloth. 413, 414, 415, then 417. June stared at the small metal plate. Her grandmother had known this door. Nora's hands had touched it. The thought made June's chest ache. Shaw removed the brass key from the evidence bag. June Bell, she said for the recording, do you recognize this as the key found inside Nora Bell's broken crutch? Yes, Mr. Pike. Do you give permission for this locker to be opened? Shaw placed the key in June's open palm. It looked tiny against her skin. June moved in front of the locker. Gabriel stood behind her, one hand ready near her elbow. She pushed the brass key into the lock. For one fearful second, it would not turn. Then June pressed it deeper. A soft click came from inside the door. The lock opened. No one spoke. June pulled the door toward her. Rust gave a low scrape along the frame. Inside sat a dark metal case wrapped in thick cloth. The cloth had once been white, but age had turned it yellow. A cord held it closed, and a red wax mark covered the knot. Ruth stepped forward. No one touched it yet. She photographed the case inside the locker. Then she took pictures of the wax mark, the cloth, the cord, and the inside walls. Shaw continued recording. With Samuel's permission, Ruth lifted the case onto a clean table that Gabriel brought from a nearby aisle. She photographed every step before opening it. Inside lay a large folded deed, several pages of meeting minutes, a typed list of founding trustees, and a cassette tape in a paper sleeve. On the sleeve, written in blue ink, were the words, "For June Bell." June covered her mouth. Ruth photographed the cassette before Shaw lifted it with gloved hands. Then, Ruth opened the deed without moving it from the case. The notary stamp was clear. An embossed seal pressed through the lower corner of the paper. Ruth checked the date. Her eyes widened. This deed was recorded decades before the transfer Eli presented. She studied the founding minutes next. These meeting notes list Nora Bell as recording secretary. The trust was formed before the Mill Corporation claimed ownership. Every detail here comes first. Shaw placed the deed, minutes, and trustee list into separate clear covers. She marked each one for protected transport and wrote the time beside her signature. Then, she held up the cassette. For the record, this item is addressed to June Bell. June has requested to keep possession of it. I am documenting its condition and its release to her. June accepted the cassette with both hands. At 4:10 in the morning, Ruth looked at June. If we authenticate this deed before court, she said, we can save the hall. At 4:30 in the morning, Gabriel unlocked the side door of his garage. The lights came on one row at a time. Their white glow fell across tool cabinets, motorcycle parts, and shelves filled with walkers and wheelchairs waiting for repair. Rain tapped against the wide front windows. June entered with the cassette held close to her chest. Her body ached from the long night, but she could not think about rest. Not yet. Gabriel, the 45-year-old Hell's Angel, pulled out chairs and cleared the largest workbench. He covered its scarred top with a clean white sheet. Detective Shaw carried the sealed document covers inside. She placed them on the bench and opened her evidence log. A gray-haired woman waited near the office door. She wore a brown coat over a dark blue dress. A square leather case rested beside her feet. Ruth introduced her. "This is Clara Voss. She worked for the county for 38 years. She was a notary and later became a forensic document examiner." Clara gave June a kind nod. "I knew your grandmother's name," she said. Nora Bell brought trust papers to the county office more than once. She always checked every line before she signed. June looked down at the cassette in her hands. "That sounds like her." Clara washed her hands, dried them, and put on thin gloves. Ruth stood beside her while Shaw recorded the time and the condition of each document. The old deed came out of its clear cover. For several seconds, Clara did not touch it. She bent close and studied the paper beneath a bright lamp. "The paper stock is right for the date," she said. "See these small blue fibers? The county used this kind of bond paper during those years." She opened her leather case and removed a round glass lens. Under the lens, the fibers looked like tiny threads trapped beneath ice. Next, Clara studied the ink. The signatures were written with different pens, she said. "That is a good sign. A false deed is often filled out at one time, by one hand using one pen." She moved to the seal pressed into the lower corner. "This mark belongs to Harold Wren. He was the county notary before me." Ruth placed an archived notary log beside the deed. She had asked the county clerk to send clear copies while the group drove back from the warehouse. Clara found the proper year, then the proper month. Her finger stopped beside a faded line. There it is. June leaned forward on her crutch. The entry listed Bellwood Community Trust. Beside it were the names of the founding trustees, including Nora Bell. The date matched the deed. Clara compared Harold Wren's signature in the log with the one on the document. She studied the shape of each letter, the hard press at the end of his last name, and the small hook he made beneath the final stroke. "They match," she said. June let out a breath that shook. Clara was not finished. She compared Nora's signature on the meeting minutes with old trust records that Evelyn had kept in a metal file box. The same wide B appeared in Bell. The same careful space rested between Nora and Bell. Then, Clara studied the county's surviving property index on Ruth's computer. The index had been saved from the flood because someone had copied it onto film years before. Most details were gone, but one narrow line remained. Bellwood Community Hall. Permanent Public Trust. Private sale forbidden. Ruth read it twice. "What does the deed say about future use?" Shaw asked. Clara pointed to a section near the bottom. "The property must serve the people of Bellwood. It may be used for public meetings, aid, education, records, meals, and community care. It cannot be sold for private development." "And the Mill Corporation?" Ruth asked. Clara shook her head. It never owned this land. It gave money toward the building, but money did not buy control. This deed came first. Any later sale by the corporation had no legal force. Gabriel stood with both hands resting on the back of a chair. Grease remained beneath his nails despite the late hour and all the careful washing. So Eli bought something that was never his. "He claimed to," Ruth said. "That is not the same thing." Clara signed a written report. She included each test she had made every record she had checked, and her finding that the deed was real. Shaw placed the deed back into its cover. For the first time since they had entered the garage, June allowed herself to sit. The hall was not a dream held together by old stories. It belonged to the community. It always had. At 5:30, June carried Nora's cassette to the archive table near Gabriel's office. Gabriel had saved an old tape player from the damaged hall. He had cleaned its heads and replaced its worn belt. Now he set it on the table and plugged it in. Everyone gathered close. June slid the cassette into the player. Her thumb rested over the play button. Evelyn took the chair beside her. "Whenever you are ready, honey," June pressed down. The machine gave a soft click. Tape hiss filled the garage. Then Nora's voice came through the small speaker. "June, if you are hearing this, then someone has tried to take the hall again." June closed her eyes. Nora sounded calm. Warm, just as June remembered her on quiet evenings at the kitchen table. "Eli Mercer's father came to me years ago," Nora continued. "He wanted the land. He offered money, then favors, then warnings. He thought old workers would get tired and give in." Evelyn lowered her head. "We did not give in," Nora said. "But I knew another Mercer might come one day. So I moved the original deed. I placed it in locker 417 at Bellwood Depot." A faint rustle sounded on the tape. The key needed a safe place. Not a bank. Not a desk. Not anywhere a man in a fine coat would think to search. Gabriel looked toward Nora's broken crutch, which rested on a shelf beside June's new pair. "So I hid the key inside my crutch," Nora said. "People often look past the things they believe have little worth." June pressed her hand against her lips. "If the crutch broke, I hoped you would hear the key. Broken things should be examined before they are thrown away. They may still carry a purpose. Sometimes the broken part is holding the very thing that helps us stand." The tape hissed for a moment. Then, Nora's voice softened. "Keep the hall for everyone, June, and do not be ashamed when good people help you carry what is heavy." The recording ended with a quiet click. No one spoke. Outside, the black sky had begun to turn pale gray. A thin line of gold rested beyond the garage windows. Ruth's phone rang. She stepped away to answer it. After a brief talk, she returned to the workbench. "The judge has delayed the hearing until 10:00 this morning," she said. "We have time to submit the deed." At 7:20 Monday morning, Ruth sat at the desk in Gabriel's small office. The garage had grown brighter with the sunrise. Rain still dotted the windows, but the heavy clouds were starting to break apart. Ruth scanned Clara's signed report, the trust deed, the meeting records, and the old county property index. She checked each page twice before sending the files to the court. Her fingers moved fast over the keyboard. "Authenticated copies are filed," she said at last. "The clerk has confirmed they were received." Detective Shaw stood beside the workbench. The original deed rested inside a hard evidence case. 2 locks held the case shut. A numbered seal crossed each lock. Shaw wrote the numbers in her log. "The original will stay with me until the judge requests it," she said. "No one else touches the case." Gabriel looked at the clock. "Then we better get June ready." June sat near the archive table with her new crutches beside her. She had changed into a soft gray dress and a dark coat Evelyn had brought from her apartment. Her hair was still damp from a quick wash in the small room behind the office. Her face looked tired. Deep shadows rested beneath her eyes. Yet her hands were steady as she placed Nora's cassette into a padded box. Gabriel gathered the box, June's bag, and a thick folder Ruth had prepared. "I can carry all of this," he said. June reached for the folder. "I want that one. It has the certified copy of the deed." "I know." Gabriel held it for a moment longer. His eyes moved from the folder to June's face. "You sure?" June nodded. "Nora carried the truth for years. I can carry it into court." A faint smile touched Gabriel's face. He handed her the folder. "All right, but I am carrying the bag." June did not argue. By 8:00, motorcycles began arriving outside the garage. One after another, the riders rolled into the wide lot. Their engines rumbled beneath the morning sky, then fell silent. The men and women removed their helmets and gathered near the front doors. Exactly 70 Hells Angels had answered Gabriel's message. Some wore heavy black jackets. Others had rain covers over their club vests. A few had spent the night helping at the warehouse, but they had still come. Their faces showed weariness, purpose, and calm. Gabriel stepped onto the low concrete curb. "We are not going to court to scare anybody," he said. "We ride within the law. We keep space between the bikes. We follow every light and every sign." The riders listened without speaking. "We park 2 streets away from the courthouse entrance," Gabriel continued. "No crowding the steps, no blocking doors, no shouting. Today is about the deed and the people of Bellwood." A rider near the back lifted one hand. "What if Mercer's people try to stir us up?" "We do not answer," Gabriel said. "Not with words, not with engines, not with anger." The rider nodded. Gabriel looked across all 70 faces. "We came to protect. We came to serve. That is what people will see." Helmets went back on. At 8:30, the riders left the garage in a slow, lawful procession. Detective Shaw drove ahead in an unmarked police car with the evidence case locked in the rear storage area. Ruth followed in her own car. Evelyn drove June, while Gabriel rode close behind them. The motorcycles did not roar through red lights or crowd other cars. They moved in pairs, keeping a safe distance. At every corner, people stopped to watch. Some held signs, "Save Bellwood Hall. History belongs to everyone." "Thank you, riders." An elderly man stood under a clear rain cover and raised his cane as they passed. 2 women from the neighborhood waved from the steps of a bakery. Children pressed their hands to the windows of a city bus. June watched through the car window. Only days before, she had seen people step back when the riders came near. Now they stood beneath wet umbrellas and lifted signs of thanks. Evelyn glanced at her. "You all right, honey?" June held the certified copy against her chest. "I think so. You do not have to think so." June drew a slow breath. "I am scared." Evelyn reached over and squeezed her hand. "So am I." June looked at her. Evelyn smiled. "We can be scared together." At 9:15, the 70 motorcycles turned into a public parking lot 2 streets from the courthouse. The riders shut off their engines and walked the rest of the way. They stayed in small groups. They left the courthouse steps clear, just as Gabriel had ordered. By 9:30, the sidewalk was lined with Bellwood residents. Former mill workers stood beside shop owners, veterans, teachers, parents, and young people who had helped clean the damaged tapes. Some held umbrellas. Others held framed photographs of the hall through the years. June stepped out of Evelyn's car. Gabriel came to her side and offered his arm without taking hold of her. He waited. June placed one crutch, then the other, on the wet pavement. She kept the folder tucked safely beneath her arm. Evelyn walked on her left. Gabriel walked on her right. Together, they moved toward the courthouse. No one cheered loudly. Instead, the people made a quiet path for them. Soft words passed through the line. "We are with you, June." For Nora. For the hall, Maya waited near the courthouse doors with Detective Shaw. Her delivery jacket was zipped to her chin, and her helmet camera rested inside a clear evidence bag. Shaw held out several pages. "This is your final sworn statement," she said. "Read it once more before you sign." Maya read every line. Her lips moved silently as she checked the times, the street names, the van, and the men changing into false biker vests. Then she signed. Shaw witnessed the signature and placed the statement into her case file. Across the lobby, Eli Mercer entered with 2 attorneys. His coat was smooth. His silver tie sat straight. He wore the calm smile of a man who believed the room already belonged to him. Then he saw Detective Shaw carrying the sealed evidence case. His eyes shifted to the folder in June's hands. Clara Voss stood beside Ruth with her leather case. Evelyn held the old county index. A court clerk carried the filed copies toward the hearing room. Eli's smile disappeared. At Tenado, everyone rose as the judge entered. After they were seated, Detective Shaw stepped forward. She read the evidence seal numbers aloud and explained each transfer, from the depot locker to the warehouse, from the warehouse to Gabriel's garage, and from the garage to the courthouse. The judge compared her log with Ruth's filing. He examined Clara's signed report, then checked the seals on the evidence case. "The chain of custody is complete," he said. He looked across the courtroom. "This hearing is now open." Ruth stood. "Your Honor, the community asks permission to present a newly discovered original trust deed." The judge gave one firm nod. "Permission is granted. You may present the deed." Ruth carried the certified copy to the judge's bench. "The trust deed was signed on May 14, 1968, she said. "It transferred the hall and the land beneath it to the Bellwood Community Trust." She opened the old meeting book. These records show that the trust accepted the property 3 days later. The founders signed their names here. Nora Bell served as recording secretary. The judge studied the pages. Clara Voss stepped forward and opened her leather case. "I compared every signature with known records from the same year," Clara said. "I also tested the paper, ink, stamp, and notary marks. They are right for the time." One of Eli's attorneys rose. "Old paper can be purchased." Clara turned toward him. "Yes, it can. Old ink can also be found, but age leaves marks that cannot be added with ease. The ink has settled into the paper fibers over many years. The fold lines match the storage marks. Dust from the depot locker was found inside those folds." She pointed toward the original deed inside the clear evidence case. "This document was not made last week. It was not made last year. It is an original record from 1968. A soft breath moved through the courtroom. Ruth returned to her table and lifted Eli's transfer document. "Mercer Development claims the Mill Corporation sold this land in 1974, she said. But by then, the corporation no longer owned it. The trust had owned it for 6 years. She placed the county property index beside the meeting book. The Mill Corporation could not sell property it did not own. Eli leaned toward his attorneys. His mouth moved quickly, but no sound reached June. The judge looked at the document Eli had presented. "I understand there is also a question about this paper." Ruth nodded. "There is, Your Honor." The court-appointed examiner is waiting outside. A woman with short brown hair entered the room. She gave her name as Dr. Helen Cross and took the oath. Then she sat at the witness table. Ruth handed her a large photograph of Eli's transfer document. "What did you find beneath the notary seal?" Ruth asked. Doctor, Cross placed the photograph on a screen. A round seal filled the wall. At first, it looked like a faded mark pressed onto old paper. Then Dr. Cross enlarged one small section. Tiny rows of colored dots appeared beneath the black line. "This pattern comes from a modern color printer," she said. The notary seal was copied and printed onto the page. It was not pressed by hand in 1974. Eli's face lost its color. His attorney stood at once. "Your Honor, we request a delay. We need time to hire another examiner." Ruth did not move. She kept her eyes on the judge. The judge removed his glasses and looked directly at Eli's legal team. "This court has already granted Mercer Development 2 delays. The company stated last week that its document had been fully checked and was ready for review." He put his glasses back on. "The request is refused." Eli pushed back from the table. "This is absurd," he said. "That building is falling apart." "I offered Bellwood jobs, homes, and progress." The judge's voice became firm. "Mr. Mercer, sit down." For one sharp moment, Eli remained standing. Then Detective Shaw took a single step closer. Eli sat. June's hands tightened around her crutches. Her heart beat so hard that she felt it in her throat. Gabriel sat behind her, still and silent. Evelyn held one corner of Nora's padded cassette box. The judge turned several pages. The courtroom became so quiet that June could hear rainwater dripping from a coat near the door. At last, the judge looked up. "The original deed is valid. It transferred Bellwood Community Hall to the Bellwood Community Trust in 1968. The trust's ownership is permanent under the terms written in that deed." June stopped breathing. The judge continued. "The Mill Corporation had no authority to sell the property in 1974. Mercer Development's claim is invalid. Its transfer document has no legal force." A small sob escaped Evelyn. "The order allowing possible demolition is ended," the judge said. "Bellwood Community Hall is protected from seizure or demolition by Mercer Development." June lowered her head. Tears fell onto her hands. Behind her, someone whispered, "Thank God." Gabriel rested one broad hand against the back of June's chair. He did not pull her close. He did not speak. He simply let her feel that he was there. The judge struck the block once. "This hearing is finished." People rose, but Detective Shaw moved toward Eli before he could reach the side door. "Mr. Mercer," she said, "do not leave." Eli stared at her. Shaw's voice remained calm. "Records seized from your offices, the statement from your security chief, the city bus footage, and evidence of a suspected forgery have established probable cause for your detention and further legal proceedings." Eli looked around the room as if searching for someone who might still obey him. No one moved. 2 officers came to Shaw's side. She spoke quietly to Eli, then led him through a private exit. Outside the courthouse, reporters crowded behind a rope line. Cameras turned toward June as she came down the steps with Gabriel and Evelyn beside her. "June, what do you think about Eli Mercer? Do you want to see him punished? Is this your victory?" June stopped on the final step. She looked past the cameras at the people of Bellwood. Maya stood near the front. Ruth held Clara's hand. 70 riders waited along the sidewalk. Former mill workers lifted old photographs. Children waved small signs made with bright paint. June faced the reporters. "Please remember the people who saved the hall," she said. "Remember the people who found the truth, carried boxes, cleaned tapes, fixed doors, gave statements, and stood in the rain." Her voice shook, but it did not fail. Do not give all your attention to the man who tried to take it. Give it to the people who refused to let it be taken. For one quiet second, the whole street seemed to listen. Then church bells began to ring across Bellwood. The crowd broke into cheers. Evelyn laughed through her tears. Maya lifted both hands. Gabriel smiled as 70 riders raised their helmets beneath the clearing sky. June held Nora's folder against her heart while the bells rang on. On Monday afternoon, June returned to Bellwood Community Hall. 70 motorcycles rolled behind the car that carried her, but they stopped at the end of the block. The riders shut off their engines and walked the final distance. No one wanted the sound of the bikes to drown out the scrape of the city workers' ladder against the brick wall. June stood on the sidewalk with Gabriel beside her. Evelyn held a wide black umbrella over them, though the rain had faded to a light mist. The ownership notice still covered the front doors. For 10 days, the white paper had felt like a lock. It had warned everyone to stay away. It had made the hall look lost, even while people fought to save it. A city worker climbed the ladder and peeled it from the glass. The paper tore down the center. A cheer rose behind June. She smiled, but the worker did not open the doors. Instead, he placed a new notice beside the handle. "Building closed until repairs pass inspection." Evelyn adjusted her glasses. "Well," she said, "that one I can live with." June touched the faded brick beside the entrance. Part of the old wooden frame still showed the deep cuts left by the attackers. "It is ours," she whispered. Gabriel, the 45-year-old Hell's Angel who had stood with her from the first night, looked up at the damaged roof. "Ours to fix," he said. The city allowed a small group inside for a planning meeting. Everyone wore hard hats. They gathered in the main room beneath stained ceiling tiles and hanging sheets of clear plastic. Ruth placed a legal pad on a folding table. Neighborhood leaders sat beside former mill workers, teachers, parents, and local business owners. 5 riders stood near the back wall. Their large hands looked almost gentle as they held cups of coffee. June sat at the front with Gabriel and Evelyn. "The deed protects the property," Ruth said. "But protection does not repair a roof. We need a clear plan, a careful budget, and votes recorded in the trust minutes." Evelyn opened Nora's old meeting book. Beside it, she placed a new one with clean pages. June looked around the room. "The archive must stay," she said. "Every tape, photograph, and written record we saved needs a safe home here." A retired teacher raised her hand. "We also need room for children to learn how to record family stories." Maya nodded from the second row. "And the building should be easy for everyone to enter, not just through a side door. The main entrance should welcome people with chairs, walkers, and crutches." Gabriel folded his arms. "I want to build a free repair shop," he said. "Wheelchairs, walkers, scooters, and anything else that helps a person move. No charge." June felt warmth fill her chest. "What would we call it?" someone asked. Gabriel looked at Nora's meeting book. "The Nora Bell Mobility Workshop." Evelyn pressed a hand to her mouth. The vote came a few minutes later. First, they voted to preserve the archive. Every hand rose. Then they voted to build an accessible community wing. Every hand rose again. Last came the workshop. Gabriel kept his own hand down until Evelyn noticed. "You vote too," she told him. "It was my idea, and a good one," Evelyn said. "Do not punish it for that." A soft laugh moved through the room. Gabriel lifted his hand. The first week began with the roof. Volunteers carried boards, tools, and rolls of roofing material up ladders. Gabriel checked every brace twice. Riders worked beside local roofers while neighbors passed cold water and sandwiches through an upstairs window. June stayed below and kept the work list. Each time doubt told her she should be lifting something heavy, she looked at the neat rows of names on her page. 70 riders, 43 neighbors, 12 local workers. Her work mattered too. By Friday, rain struck the new roof and stayed outside. During the second week, the broken entrance came down. The riders saved every piece of wood that could be used again. A carpenter carved new trim to match the old design. Children pressed their painted handprints onto a board that would be sealed inside the wall. "This way," Evelyn told them, "part of you will always hold the place up." Over the next month, electricians pulled safe new wiring through the walls. Bright alarms were fitted in every room. Wide doors replaced narrow ones. Gabriel helped guide the building of the long front ramp, checking the slope with a level until the small bubble rested in the center. June walked up the finished ramp on her crutches. At the top, she turned and saw the whole block below her. No side entrance. No back way. She had come through the front. The court cases continued. Eli's attorneys filed papers. Detectives gathered records. Ruth answered calls and reminded everyone not to speak about details that belonged in court. June gave her energy to the hall. She supervised the archive's return one careful box at a time. Clean shelves filled with labeled tapes. Photographs went into safe covers. Nora's recordings returned to the cabinet nearest June's desk. Summer softened into early autumn. Inspectors tested the wiring, alarms, doors, ramp, and roof. The final inspector walked through the hall with a clipboard, making small marks on each page. Then he signed his name. "Approved," he said. On the evening before the reopening, June stood alone in the archive room, placing the last label beneath the recovered deed. Gabriel entered carrying a long cloth bag. "Made you something," he said. Inside were 2 custom crutches, light and strong, with smooth grips shaped for her hands. Along each silver shaft, words had been carefully engraved. No honest life should disappear without a witness. June traced Nora's words with one finger. "They are beautiful," she said. Gabriel nodded toward the display case. "Her old pair belongs there now." Together, they placed Nora's repaired original crutches beside the recovered deed. June set her new crutches against the case, and the engraved words caught the warm light of the restored hall. Bright autumn sun warmed the red brick of Bellwood Community Hall. Gold leaves danced along the sidewalk, pushed by a soft wind. Above the front doors, a new bronze sign shone in the morning light. Bellwood Community Hall, permanently protected for public use. June stood at the bottom of the wide front ramp. Gabriel's custom crutches rested beneath her arms. Nora's words gleamed along the silver shafts. No honest life should disappear without a witness. People filled the block. Veterans stood near the front in clean jackets and polished shoes. Retired mill workers greeted old friends with firm handshakes and long hugs. Parents held the hands of excited children. City officials spoke with volunteers beneath bright blue banners. All 70 riders were there. Their motorcycles stood in neat rows across the street. Sunlight flashed on mirrors and chrome, but the engines were silent. The riders had come to honor the voices inside the hall, not cover them. Gabriel stood near the entrance. At 45 years old, he looked strong enough to carry half the building on his back. Yet he was bent over, speaking gently to an older man in a wheelchair. "The left wheel keeps pulling," the man said. Gabriel tested it with one hand. "Bring it into the shop after the ceremony," he said. "We will set it right. How much?" Gabriel gave him a firm look. "Nothing," the man blinked. Then he smiled. Inside, the Norabel Mobility Workshop waited behind broad glass doors. Clean tools hung in careful rows. Work tables stood at different heights so people could reach them from chairs. Shelves held new grips, wheels, brakes, rubber tips, and small parts. A sign above the main table carried Nora's name. Beneath it were 4 simple words: "Repairs always without charge." Across the hall, the new recording studio held 2 chairs, 2 microphones, and a wide window. Thick wall panels softened every sound. On one shelf sat blank memory cards and fresh notebooks. On another rested copies of old Bellwood photographs. Maya stood in the studio doorway, checking the equipment for the 3rd time. "You know it worked the first 2 times, June said. "I know," Maya replied. "But this is history." June smiled. "Then check it once more." Evelyn rang Nora's old brass handbell outside. The clear sound moved through the crowd. People gathered around a small platform beside the ramp. Ruth stood with city leaders near the front. Detective Lena Shaw remained at the edge of the crowd, her hands folded before her. When June caught her eye, Lena gave a quiet nod. The mayor stepped forward and spoke about public trust, shared history, and the right of every person to enter through the front door. Then, Evelyn cut a wide blue ribbon with Nora's old sewing scissors. The crowd cheered. The front doors opened. Children hurried toward the story room. Veterans entered the archive and found recordings made by friends they had lost. Older workers stood before a large photograph of the old mill, pointing out faces and calling one another over. "Good grief," one woman said. "Look at Frank's hair." A gray-haired man laughed. "I had plenty back then." In the workshop, Gabriel and several riders began taking names. A walker with a loose brake went onto one table. A child's wheelchair with a broken footrest went onto another. No one was asked for money, only a name, only what needed to be fixed. June watched from the main room. The hall no longer smelled of rain, dust, or damaged tape. It smelled of clean wood, coffee, machine oil, and apple cake. It smelled alive. Evelyn touched her arm. "It is time," she said. June approached the microphone at the front of the room. Her crutches made soft, steady sounds against the polished floor. Tap, step, tap, step. The room grew quiet. At the microphone, June placed both crutches beside her. She held the stand with one hand, then let go. She stood on her own. A small shake moved through her injured leg. Gabriel took one step forward, but stopped when June looked at him. She found her balance. Then, she raised her face to the people before her. "Thank you," she said. Her voice trembled, but it did not break. "Thank you for saving the tapes. Thank you for building the ramp. Thank you for fixing the roof, painting the walls, bringing food, giving money, and telling the truth when lies were louder." She looked at the retired mill workers. "This hall keeps your voices." She looked at the children. And one day, it will keep yours. Then, she turned toward Gabriel. The night the hall was attacked, I called one person. I could hardly speak. I thought I was alone. Gabriel's eyes lowered for a moment. You answered my whispered cry, June said. Gabriel looked around at the packed hall. I only answered first, he said. Bellwood answered afterward. The room filled with applause. June reached for a small control on the table. Nora's restored voice flowed through the speakers. Places like this are not built by one rich person, Nora said. They are built with 1,000 small kindnesses. A meal when someone is hungry. A ride when someone cannot walk. A hand held out before it is asked for. That is how a hall becomes a home. Evelyn wiped her eyes. Gabriel stood very still. Outside, 70 motorcycles shone beneath falling gold leaves. When the recording ended, June carried her crutches into the new studio. Gabriel followed and sat across from her. Maya closed the door partway, leaving the window open to the autumn air. June placed a fresh file card on the table. Gabriel Rourke, she said. First interview for the new Bellwood Oral History Collection. Gabriel glanced at the microphone. I fix engines. I do not talk into those things. June smiled. Today you do. She pressed the record button. Why did you repair your first wheelchair? Gabriel's rough hands rested on his knees. My mother needed one, he said. We could not afford the kind that worked well for her. So I found an old chair and took it apart. I cleaned every piece, fixed the wheels, changed the seat. When she rolled through our kitchen by herself, she laughed. His face softened. That laugh changed my life. Through the open window came the light ring of tools from the workshop. Someone tested a repaired scooter. Children laughed in the hall. A neighbor called for help lifting a box, and 3 voices answered at once. June leaned toward the microphone. What do you hope this workshop will mean to Bellwood? Gabriel looked through the glass at the people working side by side. It means help is here, he said. It means asking is nothing to be ashamed of. It means no one in Bellwood will ever again be left broken and alone. June stopped the recorder. I hope you like this story. Please share what's your favorite part of the story and where in the world you are watching from. Have a wonderful day.